Right. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field. Put your foot down." This rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster?
One here from Dan in Hampshire. Morning, Mike. Is an Aussie that has been dive bombed by our version of the Magpie, which is much...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 6. Ladies and gentlemen, it is dark outside, but it is a beautiful, beautiful morning. It's going to be a lovely day, and we have got lots of really, really great news for you. There's not a lot of actual good news for you, but there is news, right? Including things like this. Labour drops plans for a grooming gang inquiry on the final day of Parliament. Do you think, one, that they did it because they thought nobody would notice? 2, do you think they did it because they thought nobody will have a chance to discuss it? 3, do you think they did it because it was done on the same day that Prince Harry, who has made most of the front pages, was coming into London to fight the government yet again on whether he should have protection or not? We covered it live yesterday as he was literally walking through the streets of our city with protection. He was actually suing the government, asking for more protection, which doesn't make much sense at all. The nationalisation gaffe on the railways has apparently cost us £250 million. Those brilliant civil servants that we talk about all the time didn't realise they had to lease the trains. And so now we're going to have to spend an awful lot more money. This is just on one line, Great Western Railways. Absolutely incredible. Wes Streeting's had a go at the striking bin men, showing once and for all that Labour have moved as far away from their trade union founders as ever. And also, a rat man turned up at a Birmingham council meeting. A bloke dressed as a rat just to turn them up and wind them up. And so that's a fascinating story. The woman who had her womb transplanted has now said that she's very happy that she's had one child. Now she wants to have another one. I mean, you know, come on, darling, you know, take it easy, calm down, calm down. Don't have too many children with the transplanted womb. It might not work the second time around. I don't know. Also, the Prime Minister's hope is to stay British still. But the biggest story of the day, ladies and gentlemen, I want your help on this, is a British theme park. Universal Studios is going to spend a whole bucket load of money to build a theme park, creating something like 28,000 jobs somewhere in the middle of Bedfordshire. It's going to be ready in a few years' time. I don't know how long it's going to take. We want your ideas as to what we should put in the British theme park. For example, you would stay in a migrant hotel, so when you come down for breakfast in the morning, it's all gone because they've all eaten it, and they actually aren't paying. There's a few tariffs as well to pay. If you turn up at the theme park without a ticket and you have to buy one, depending on which country you're from, the ticket can cost anything from £2 to £3,000. There's also dodgems on potholes. There's also things like, the swinging, the gondolier thing, the thing that goes from side to side with a load of migrants on it as well. You might get stabbed, you might have your phone stolen. There's all manner of things we can do. We want your ideas. What would you put in a British theme park? 0344 499 1000 is the number. This, of course, is the home of common sense. It is talk. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. And here to help me with all of these stories and all of the stuff that's going on this morning, Theo Rushford is here. Theo, very good morning to you.
Very good morning, Mike.
I mean, I know there's trade wars looming. There's, all sorts of stories around on the front pages about the US and China on a collision course. But I have to say, I'm very tickled by the idea of a British theme park being built by Universal Studios. The Sun's got a version of it. The Mirror's got a version of it on the front page as well. They're going to spend a bucket load of money, and I think it's going to create. They say it's going to create 28,000 jobs. Who knows if that's going to be the case, but it's got so many rich possibilities of, what you would put in it.
My contribution for this, Mike, is that, you have those cameras where they take your picture when you're screaming on a roller coaster.
Yes.
I think you could put in ULEZ cameras.
ULEZ
and then you
cameras.
and then you get a £100 fine at the end.
Yeah.
So if you want your photo, there it is, £100.
Absolutely brilliant. £100 fine for going on the roller coaster. I've got this. We could have some dinghy rapids, right? Yeah. So you get a dinghy at the top, and you come down, and it's a bit like one of those, things that you can get thrown out of it because it's dangerous. Don't want to mock the people who unfortunately have trouble crossing the channel, but you can have different weather. Like on a sunny day, thousands of people can go down it. When it's a bit rough, there's only a couple of boats going. You have some French gendarmerie waving you away as you go. Bonjour, au revoir. A stationary car, one of my favourite ones. These have been selected. Mark behind the glass, Christian as well, Damien as well, all back there. A stationary car, which is like, reenactment of you sitting on the M25, waiting to get to the theme park. So you're literally in a car that doesn't move. Doesn't go anywhere.
Sit in the car.
Sit in the car. The stabbing section, you're going to run through a sort of hall of mirrors and try and avoid being stabbed, right? I mean, the list is endless. Come on, guys. I'm not going to give you all of them now. I need you to help me. So send them in. 0344 499 1000. I need some voice notes. I need some text messages, 87222. You can tweet us at talkTV. Cycle lanes, obviously. It's going to be, maybe a game where you can run over a cyclist. There's got to be, some method or other where you and the cyclist have some kind of conflagration in the middle of nowhere. So it's all good. That's the big story. But actually, the big story, seriously, is the Grooming Gang inquiry, I think, which is absolutely and utterly disgraceful. This government, I tell you what, they treat the people of this country like complete and utter morons. They think that they can have the cancellation of a Grooming Gang inquiry. And Katie Lamb, MP, I don't know whether you know her, got up yesterday in Parliament and said some incredible things. Let's just have a look at what she did say. She basically objected to the fact that who was it? Jess Phillips, the Home Office Minister, basically said, following feedback, the government would adopt a flexible approach, which basically meant that they would not be doing a Grooming Gang inquiry. Here's what Katie Lamb had to say.
There is no question that the state has failed these children time and again. Take the case of Anna from Bradford. Vulnerable and in residential care, at the age of 14, she made repeated reports of rape and abuse to social workers who were responsible for her. But just the following year, aged 15, she married her abuser in a traditional Islamic wedding ceremony. Far from stepping in to stop it, her social worker was aghast. The authorities then arranged for her to be fostered by her abuser's parents. The ringleader of the Rochdale rape gang, Shabir Ahmed, was employed as a welfare rights officer by Oldham Council. And yet not one person, not one, has been convicted for covering up these institutionalised rapes.
A Home Office spokesman has said that it is patently false, that it was watering down its plans. But basically, that's exactly what has happened here, isn't it?
Yes. Look, I was a parliamentary reporter, and it was always known as the last day of the Commons sitting was always known as the day when they threw out the trash. And what I mean by that is they put all of the bad news, everything they want to bury, they put it on the final day of
a good day to bury bad news.
A good day. It's a version of that, but the idea is you put it on the last day of term, because what happens is, as you rightly said, the three reasons, people don't want to talk about it. MPs go away, so if there's any objection, it was a very good speech, by the way, by Katie Lamb. It's a very difficult,
very hard hitting, by the way. I mean, she uses the F word. She doesn't hold back. I mean, she's quite graphic about some of the things that happened.
So it was very strong, and if this was given, Jess Phillips made it was cynical what the Home Office did. 45 minutes before Parliament broke for the Easter recess. So what that means is that MPs now on holiday for 2 weeks. You can't have a proper scrutiny of this decision. MPs, Parliament isn't sitting, they can't meet, the MPs can't talk amongst each other, and the hope is, we'll come back for the local elections and everybody just forgets about it. But people shouldn't forget about it. These inquiries needed to happen. In fact, there should have been a much broader inquiry looking to piece together everything that happened right across the board, rather than councils now being given the chance they don't even have to have an inquiry. They could just be given the money and spend it pretty much how they like. And I think it's not just disgraceful, it's cynical.
It's really cynical. And really from Jess Phillips particularly, a woman who tries to sort of champion the rights of what she would regard as ethnic minorities, despite the fact that they've threatened her in her own seat, they've heckled her in her own seat. She almost lost her own seat because of the sort of the Gaza problem, and the people in Birmingham who want to vote for MPs who are not actually British but who are going to represent people from other countries. It's an extraordinary situation, because they just don't want to go anywhere near being critical of Muslims, and it's a disgrace.
Following feedback, she said this decision, the government had decided to take a flexible approach. I'd love to know whose feedback, from when, who gave that feedback, because I don't see any justification.
And they're hoping,
was it the councils themselves?
And they're hoping that you won't be asking that question.
And we don't have an opportunity
because there
to
won't
ask
be
that
anybody
question.
to ask.
Exactly.
Because now they're all off for Easter.
Exactly. So this would be a perfect opportunity if Commons was sitting, if Parliament was sitting. We'd have a briefing with the Prime Minister's spokesman in 3 or 4 hours.
And so does that all stop? I mean,
that stops. We get one a week. We get one next Monday.
Keir Starmer will still be working, but you won't be having a sort of daily briefing.
Well, no, we don't have a daily briefing with the Prime Minister's spokesman. There'll be one on Monday. For the week, and then there will be a briefing the following Tuesday because of the bank holiday. And that, we would, pretty much every journalist would pick this up in the morning and go right, okay. Yeah. Can you justify that? And then there may well be she gave a statement to the House of Commons. There could be a follow-up urgent question. You could have MPs could submit written questions, and all of that level of scrutiny will go. And of course,
you would have presumably people like Rupert Lowe, who's raised I think £500,000 to have his own sort of grooming gangs inquiry. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work or what he's going to do with that money, but certainly he's been very active on this, and presumably he would want to ask questions, wouldn't he?
Yes, he'd want to ask questions. He's not going to have the opportunity to do so. No MP, there's. You would think that they could ask a question, or there could be follow-ups, after the Easter recess. But you know as well as I do, Mike, that these things require momentum. That they require people to get behind them, whether it's journalists, politicians as well. And there's clearly it's going to be much more difficult to do that and get the answers from the government.
And this government are hiding behind this, because here's the wording of what they said yesterday. Because of as you say, following feedback, we don't know who from, the government says they will adopt a flexible approach where the money would be made available for local councils to use as they wish to support grooming gang work. That means that the government is not ordering anything, it's not demanding anything, a bit like the way that on the weekend government ministers from Bridget Phillipson to Yvette Cooper to Rachel Reeves hid behind this idea that the police have operational independence, and therefore we're not going to criticise or even comment on anything the police do, whether it's to do with arresting parents because they complained about something going on at school, or arresting the wrong people. They're literally sort of hiding behind these what you might call secret walls which don't really exist.
And would you trust a council where the social worker turns up at the arranged marriage of one of the victims to spend that portion of money wisely.
Right, and we know the problem in some of these northern cities and towns like Bradford and Rochdale and Oldham is that the council workers were embedded in the kind of the Pakistani community, so that you would have, you know, lots of councillors who would be from that community, lots of reasons and politicians as well, who would be saying things like to the police, don't worry, we'll take care of all this. And the police themselves, some of them, involved in some of this sexual activity with these underage girls. It's absolutely shocking.
It's an appalling decision, and they're not going to reconsider, and they've made their call on it, and I would have thought that rather than worry about the news management, just worry about the problem.
Right.
Yeah, this isn't something.
The actual victims. The actual victims.
Yeah, just this is such a grave, such a serious issue that if you want to sort of turn this into some sort of, strategic PR move, that just seems.
It's very cynical, isn't it?
Let's have
a listen to some more from Katie Lamb, because Katie Lamb was brilliant on this yesterday. I'm sorry I've never come across Katie Lamb's sort of existence before, but this is a great woman and a fantastic MP. Have a listen.
The girls we are talking about, Mr. Speaker, are predominantly white. The men who preyed on them were predominantly Muslim, generally either from Pakistan or of Pakistani heritage. One of the victims from Dewsbury was told by her rapist, I quote, "We're here to all the white girls and the government." Will the Minister accept that, in many cases, these crimes were racially and religiously aggravated? How, without a national inquiry, can we understand what part these factors played?
Absolutely extraordinary stuff, it really is. And she has stood up and said everything that I think most people listening to this programme would like to say to this government. And Jess Phillips, I don't know if we've got anything from her, but she has completely and utterly, I think, disgraced herself as a woman, as an MP, as a member of the Labour Party, and for not standing up for ordinary working class white girls who have been abused time and time again, over and over, relentlessly by these absolute scumbags.
Yeah, and this may have been a decision, I don't know, this may have been a decision taken within the Home Office, but what you want is ministers to go in and say, no, let's just presume, let's give Jess Phillips the benefit of the doubt and say this came from some sort of high-level Mandarin. Right? You want a minister to go, no, this needs to happen. Right. We want this to happen, we need this to happen.
And the public wants it to happen.
And the public wants
it to happen.
And the Labour Party spent an hour and a quarter debating amongst itself, patting themselves on the back on Monday afternoon as a result of 2 MPs being kicked out of Israel. Yeah. Where is the chance, where is the time in Parliament for Labour MPs, not just Tory MPs or Reform MPs or Liberal Democrat MPs, but Labour MPs now to stand up and say, actually, this is a problem that should be dealt with. This is what's concerning your listeners. This is what's concerning the people who are tuning into your show today. And if that's the concern of your listeners and your people who are tuning in to talk and are tuning into other radio stations and other networks as well, then the government needs to be on top of it. And Labour needs to be on top of it, especially given the local elections coming up, but even if local elections weren't coming up, because otherwise there's going to be the hard rain we're predicting in 2029. I tell you, it's going to get much worse.
It's going to fall, absolutely right. We've got lots more to talk about, including the striking bin men in Birmingham. A man dressed as a rat turned up at a council meeting, and we're going to talk about a coked-up ambulance driver. I mean, is there anybody in this country who's not on drugs, for heaven's sake? There's a bloke driving an ambulance, right, for a 999 call, coked off his face, crashes the ambulance, and has now been done for it. But because of his previous good character, he's not going to prison, don't forget. How about this from G? I've been asking you for your contributions, please, to what a British theme park, Universal Studios, would look like. What would be in there? Dodgem cars where you have to avoid the potholes, says Gary from Portree. One from G, who says fast-track entry to every ride for illegals, plus a free night stay in the Parks Hotel and free food. Yeah, you can have that fast track, right, but you can't go there because you're not an illegal migrant. Only illegal migrants get it. The new theme park bumper cars will have to pay a congestion charge, and the funhouse isn't built yet, despite Angela Rayner's pledge to build houses. Brilliant. And here's one from Jules in Camden. It says, morning, Mike and Theo. What about a ghost train doesn't move because the driver's on strike? Have a good day. This is brilliant. We're going to go all the way through the show with this, right? This is the best story. I'm sorry to say, I mean, obviously very important other stories like the Grooming case story, which we will do, but the theme park, British theme park, this is going to absolutely go nuts all day. Ian has got a voice note for us.
Mike, Ian from Home Firth here. The possibilities are truly endless with the British themed theme park. We could have the Lammy Learjet plane rides.
Lammy Learjet, brilliant. Learjet Lammy, get on the plane, fly wherever you like, just charge it to the taxpayer. It's absolutely free. 20 minutes past 6.
We need to deter people from coming.
Yes.
And as the French rightly say, we're not doing that. We're enticing them.
Yeah.
It's a madness.
But when people say, well, the thing about the Rwanda scheme is it just didn't work. Well, it never really got the chance. It never started because that impetuous idiot, Keir Starmer, came in on day one, denounced it as a gimmick and chucked it into the bin. Then old Calamity Cooper, the Home Secretary, stood up and said, do you know how much the Tories wasted on the Rwanda scheme?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 23 minutes past 6. So we've got so many funny things coming in on the holiday theme park. How about this one from Dave? He says, morning Mike, you can enter the theme park via A&E, where you could wait 12 hours on a trolley. That's so good. Brendan from London. Ray, the British theme park. British theme park wouldn't allow you to book your tickets in advance. You'd have to call the 8 a.m. scramble in the morning if you want to go and see if there's any tickets available. Let's get a voice note from Ben.
Morning, Mike. Ben from Birmingham. For the theme park, instead of the water rapids, you can have a road you go down that's full of potholes in a car with bad suspension and flat tyres. I don't know why they're bothering building a theme park in this country. They're going right, no one will be able to afford to go to it anyway.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's fantastic. Listen, this is a very serious show. I don't really start making fun of it, but it is extraordinary, some of the things that you could actually come up with this theme park. So I think 28,000 jobs. It's actually quite good news. The Labour Party there's another thing. They put it out like sort of late yesterday, and some of the papers have got it this morning. I think the Mirror's the only one that's got it on the front page. But I mean, if it is going to create 28,000 jobs, it's a pretty good story for Labour. But you know, as ever with everything they say, you do worry that it's not quite what it's cracked up to be.
Well, also, and I think it shows the benefit that if you offer companies and industries tax breaks. Because the film industry in this country came from George Osborne. Had a massive tax break. And that's why this country's become the UK one of the burgeoning industries, and they're not many.
Yes.
Has become a real focal point for organisations like Universal that want to come and be based in. I'm not a tax expert, so I can't say whether a theme park falls within that, but certainly this country has become a real focal point.
I mean, the creative industries, as they are known, is a massive growth area for Britain. I mean, people in the creative industries have also said that one of the problems that they're going to face over the coming weeks and months is that the new national insurance rules are going to mean, and the new workers' rights rules are going to mean that actually freelance, stage crews, film crews, actors, writers, people who don't actually work for anyone are going to be sucked into some kind of weird contract by whoever it is they're working for, which is going to ruin what they do.
Yes, and it's also going to make it more difficult to work with individual freelancers, because of course the Workers' Rights Bill is looking to abolish zero hours contracts. It's really problematic.
It's a real problem for that business in particular.
Yeah, and it's all that whole industry, whether it's television or it's the film industry, just works on freelancers, and they go from gig to gig to gig because where the work is, and actually you can make decent money, and you get better money as a result of than you would do if you're on a contract.
Yeah, absolutely right. And people like working that way. They don't necessarily want to have a contract. They don't want to have to do a certain number of hours every week, because they like the freelance life.
Yeah, and you build up your portfolio. You start as a runner, and you can within a few years you can end up as an executive producer. You just literally work your way up the ladder, and you can at the top. Many of them work, and you're a very senior television producer. Just work 4 or 5 months a year, and then that allows you to have a family life, or whatever, and spend more time doing other things that you enjoy doing, because it's a freelance gig, you're actually paid more, and then that gives you the time to do other things.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's have a look at what was going on in Birmingham yesterday, because the strikes have now entered the third or fourth month. Because when I spoke to Unite about this, I said to them, how long have you actually been on strike for? He said, well, we started on the first week of January, and although it's only really kind of ratcheted up into the state that it is now, they're basically not emptying bins and not taking rubbish away for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And we had a reporter up in Selly Oak yesterday, as a part of Birmingham where it's really, really bad, who said, it's absolutely and utterly disgusting and disgraceful. It stinks to high heaven, and people are really, really worried about the health ramifications. But yesterday, a man dressed as a rat turned up, believe it or not, at a council meeting, and he had this to say.
I'm looking forward to going around, eating rubbish wherever I can see. I'm a Selly Oak rat, so in Selly Oak, all the students litter all their rubbish, and it doesn't get collected. And I'm very, very happy to be going around, eating their food, having lots and lots of babies with my wife, and really increasing the rat population in Birmingham. By what date does the council think it will have reduced the backlog, reduced the rat population, and returned our streets to an acceptable state?
Councillor Mohammed, thank you to reply.
I mean, only in Britain would you get that, wouldn't you? I mean, it's one of the great sort of eccentricities of this country, where you get somebody dressed up as a rat actually quizzing Labour councillors about what they're going to do about this.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't get that in France or Spain or anywhere like that, and certainly not in the United States. They'd probably taser him before you go anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely right.
You'd have fried
But
rat.
what are you making of the government's response to all this? Because Wes Streeting had a go yesterday, basically saying that union chiefs are creating a public health crisis. It's interesting, because they're moving quite a long way away, it seems to me, from their sort of union masters.
About time. It's about time that, and I'm not surprised that it's Wes Streeting. Of course, he has his own ambitions to be leader of the party, and he knows where the country is on this. You know, the country wants this crisis in Birmingham sorted out as soon as possible, and it should never have reached this point, because as Wes Streeting rightly points out, we are now starting to look at a public health crisis, because with all of this rubbish, especially with the hot weather, you're looking at faeces in the streets.
Yeah.
I mean, in Birmingham,
and rats that spread disease. Let's not forget.
Spread disease, and we're gonna end up with some really nasty diseases, that spread like wildfire right across the city, and it just needs to be sorted out. And I don't, for the life of, well, I do understand why they've done it, and it's because, of course, they don't want to upset the trade unions, which of course fund the Labour Party.
Yeah.
But they really should now just be calling in the army. Any blockades, just move them out of the way.
Yeah.
Get the rubbish cleared, and then just they either need to sit down and get this dispute sorted, or the government needs to just find a different way of ensuring that Birmingham remains free of this rubbish, because it could get really, really serious, and it's just not okay to just say, well, it's just a council and a trade union.
Because it's not just a local issue, because it's an issue which might, and Unite have actually hinted at this, that it might spread to other parts of the country, because they've got issues apparently with all sorts of councils in terms of their contract for the bin men and the refuse collection and all the rest of it. So this could, and I mean, we say this a lot now, but it reminds me of the 1970s, where basically just ordinary services weren't happening. People got very fed up. We ended up with a 3-day week. We ended up with all sorts of strikes and walkouts, and in the end, the government fell down as a result.
Yeah. We're with 4 years till the next general election. I think the government, they're not going to do this, but my thought would be that if the trade union can't sort it out, then you make refuse collection, you put it in the same bracket as an emergency service.
Yeah.
You say, right, this is such a vital service. Binmen go in the same bracket as the police, and they're not allowed to strike.
It will be. If it's not an emergency now, it will be one very soon. You would think, certainly a health emergency, that's for sure. A couple of other little clips that have come in. Keir Starmer apparently wants 16-year-olds to get the vote. Here he is talking to the liaison committee.
We'll definitely get it done. It's a manifesto commitment, and we intend to honour it. I think that if you're old enough to go out to work, if you're old enough to pay your taxes, then you are entitled to have a say on how your taxes are spent. And also we do have voting at a younger age in different parts of the United Kingdom, and the sky didn't fall in. It's a commitment we made, it's a commitment we intend to keep.
Yeah, it's a commitment you intend to keep, because by the time 16-year-olds get the vote, everybody over 16 won't be voting Labour, because they'll go, actually, you've managed to screw the country to such an extent that we don't want you back, thanks very much indeed.
Yeah, the SNP did it and it backfired in Scotland. So you could, Labour could introduce the vote for 16-year-olds, but Nigel Farage has a following on TikTok.
Big following.
A big following on TikTok. A number of young people who are politically active, like the Reform leader. We saw him out yesterday, looking every part, the sort of, with his, placards that were saving British steel in Scunthorpe.
Right.
And I think there's an inherent danger that actually this could
he's the
backfire.
people's champion, isn't he? People relate to Nigel Farage. They like him. Yeah. And especially a lot of young men in particular would be voting for him, and will probably vote for him when they become old enough to do so. Also, by the way, I didn't think you could leave school anymore when you're 16, so when he talks about people going out to work... You could leave GCSEs. I think you then... The idea is then you go into education, employment or training. Yeah,
of course, we've got a million young people at home, not in any of those things, just sitting at home, unable to work or in training or employment.
So, just got some more theme park ideas coming in. This one from Steve in Cambridge, right? Catch a rat on Bin Bag Alley. That's a great one there. And also from Stalk, Mike, will the theme park have a Rachel Reeves themed casino which constantly loses money? I mean, this is great stuff. You've got to send some more of these in, right? One from Marco, he says, great show. These suggestions are cracking me up this morning. How about this one? An NHS roller coaster where you have to stand in line for 3 months, then you find out the ride doesn't work at the end of it. It is brilliant. I think we got a new voice note, I think, from Kitty.
Good morning, Mike. Kitty from Kent here. For your theme park, I'm assuming on the Dinghy Rapids, women and children wouldn't be allowed to take that ride. Have a lovely day.
Yeah, women and children, nein danke, not allowed. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Here's one from Scottish who says, how about you can have a plane to Rwanda that never takes off? Maybe there'd be a section for human rights lawyers. You know, you can go in and get yourself represented for something or other. We've got so much coming out on that. 6:34, Theo Usher and I are back after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, 6:36, and of course the sun is rising. It's a beautiful sort of golden orb in the sky that I get a great view of here out the window on the 17th floor of News UK. It comes a little bit later than it did because the clocks, of course, went forward due to spring a couple of weeks ago. Let's have a talk about what's going on internationally, I suppose, because over in Russia and in Ukraine, quite an interesting story. We've got the USA and Russia on a sort of collision course on the tariffs front, but more importantly, two Chinese fighters were captured fighting for Russia in eastern Ukraine, according to Vladimir Zelensky. Apparently there were 6 of them. And when I saw this story yesterday, I suddenly thought, blimey, that's a bit of a game changer. The papers haven't treated it as a massive story, but it's on front page of the Telegraph. Western intelligence sources said it was unlikely the soldiers were sent directly by China. Russia routinely recruits foreigners into its armed forces through irregular means. But, I mean, if they've got Chinese people fighting for them, I mean, that's slightly concerning, isn't it?
It's hugely concerning, and of course, as you rightly say, the question is this just like a couple of Chinese troops that Russia has just brought in?
Sort of random Chinese people.
But actually, we know that Xi Jinping, the Chinese premier, has continued to support, has continued to trade with Russia, fund Russia, because the sanctions are only being the sanctions that are employed by the West are only actually being used by the West. So if that actually turns out that, like North Korea, China is actually supplying troops to Russia to continue the war against Ukraine, I mean that is a huge game changer, and that would signify something very, very concerning in terms of an escalation of the conflict. Because what's interesting about this, of course, is that Donald Trump sees, Russia, Ukraine quite separate to China. He's got this trade war going on with China, but it would, of course, spark fears that we could be heading towards a much broader global conflict.
Right. And I mean, on the tariff front, on the front page of the Eye, it's got Trump hits China with 104% tariffs in major trade war escalation. And Beijing, I'm quite happy about this, really. The idea that Beijing isn't happy and is saying that we're being bullied by the United States of America. Well, about bloody time too, is what I would say. And good luck to them. US stock markets fall after Trump administration confirms latest tariff blow and says China doesn't know how to make a deal, as 70 other nations have come forward to negotiate. And we've always said this, that, Trump has done much of what he's done in terms of tariffs in order to bring people to the table to actually get an improved situation for America.
Yes, and of course, and China, of course, is unlike Cambodia or Vietnam or South Korea, is in a much stronger position, so it doesn't necessarily feel like it needs to negotiate. But this trade war could hit the Chinese economy by as much as 3% of its GDP.
Yes.
And Trump is showing no signs of backing down. Everybody says, oh, he's going to back down, he's going to blink first, his advisor. It doesn't look like it.
No.
And
it's a good look for America in terms of its internal kind of, voters, if you like. Yeah. For him to be going after China is, they're very happy about that.
Yeah, of course. And we always see things as, and I listened to Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the EU Commission, sort of say, oh, this is going to have such a bad effect for, countries around the world. And of course, for the likes of Cambodia and Vietnam, those two countries I mentioned, other countries which, of course, produce clothing and products for the United States market. Previously no tariffs, and that multinational companies could just export all of the jobs abroad, get the products made, and then import them without any penalties whatsoever.
Yes.
These tariffs will have a decimating impact. But for Donald Trump, and when he announced Liberation Day, I thought perhaps the most striking thing wasn't necessarily the board, but actually the workers that he had on the stage alongside him, saying this is the right approach.
Right. Absolutely. And of course everybody's been magging on about the markets crashing and people getting absolutely and utterly ruined and their pensions being worthless and all of that, but yesterday they started to come back up the other way, which as I've often said is always what happens, right?
Of course.
Everything corrects itself over time. And actually I put out a tweet yesterday which was context is everything, I said, and it showed the FTSE 100 for the last 5 years, which is constantly going basically in an up direction, and there's a tiny little blip at the end, which is what's happening today when it went down a little bit. So I mean, if you're a long-term investor, as most people are with their pensions, don't worry about it.
And the idea is that yes, you can look at your pensions pot and you'll see it is not looking particularly rosy this morning, but if Donald Trump's, Donald Trump doesn't want chaos. When you listen to what he's saying, he doesn't want chaos long term, Mike. He doesn't want this chaos to go on long term.
No, of course not. But he doesn't want the markets to fall. But he won't be dictated to by the markets either.
No, and but he does want a better deal for American manufacturers, and he does want to bring jobs back into the American market.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's have a look at what Caroline Leavitt had to say. She is, of course, the White House press secretary. Brilliant at her job. Have a look.
He's not considering an extension or a delay. I spoke to him before this briefing. That was not his mindset. He expects that these tariffs are going to go into effect. And you said something very important, Elena, in your question. You said the president has captivated the attention of the world. Absolutely, he has. And it's about time we have a president in the Oval Office who is putting the world on notice and is putting the American people first, and again, is using the leverage of the United States to negotiate good trade deals.
And and never a sharper word spoken. Also, we've got the story on the front page of the Times. Absolutely nothing to do with tariffs, but it says London drops down the wealth list as super rich have moved out. Basically, an annual report on global wealth found that UK's capital lost 11,300 dollar millionaires over the past year, including 18 centi millionaires, which is someone who's got at least $100 million. And the study conducted for the advisory firm Henley and Partners by New World Wealth says that basically people with many liquid investable assets have just disappeared out of the country.
Yes, and of course
bad news, that isn't it?
It is bad news. It's bad news because we need these people here
because they will be paying tax. Whatever the socialists say, people with money pay an awful lot of tax in this country, whether it's by buying things, whether it's by owning things, whether it's VAT, whether it's income tax, whether it is just a series of taxes that they end up having to pay.
Yes, and it's also and it's interesting actually. It's not just it's not just taxes. It's what they see is how they see the economy being managed. Is the UK somewhere to do business? And I think the fear is that actually under this Labour government, when you've got the increases in national insurance contributions, the tax rate there, that actually from a business perspective, this isn't, their view is that this, according to this report, is that this isn't a country where you want to do business.
No, exactly right. Going back to the theme park scenario, we're asking you for your ideas for theme parks. This one from Robert, who says his suggestion, the Hoyle Golden Ticket, a free ride anywhere on anything at taxpayers' expense. That's not bad. And one here from Simon, great show, love the idea of the theme park, but it needs a mascot to greet the guests. Obviously, Mickey Mouse is already spoken for, but Ratman maybe free when the time comes. Ratman could be the guy. Also, this from Arwa, who says, Mike, Tony from North Somerset, for your theme park, can you have an all-you-can-eat buffet served by people dressed as David Lammy? Keep up the good work. A lot of people say he's put on a bit of weight since he's been in government because he's all those state dinners he keeps going to around the world. Don't forget, there's already a Lammy Learjet ride at the theme park. But keep the theme park ideas coming. We're going to keep them going all the way through the show this morning. It's 6:44. Coming up, we'll be telling you about the coked-up ambulance driver and also a dystopian tool which is being invented to identify who's likely to commit murder in the future. This is Talk.
We've reinforced bad behaviour. Moral hazard has been embedded by our response. So when we look at those barriers, it's really the French giving us two fingers and saying, well, thanks for the money. This is what you're getting for 500 million. A couple of pillars which are ineffective. And the whole thing is a joke. And you said it yourself just now, Jeremy. If we wanted to control our borders, we'd control our borders. If they were armed, we would stop them in the channel and we'd make sure they didn't pass, wouldn't we? So
I'd hope so.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, 6:47. Got lots of really, really good suggestions coming in for the British theme park. One from Dallas who says this. Good morning, Mike. How about a guess the gender competition? Entrants paraded sportswear of their choice, and if the judges misgender them, they're sent to jail. Brilliant. A theme park we were told it's a tenner to go in, says Paul, but when you go to pay, it's gone up by 20%. And Philip Chelmsford says on the theme park, have a barrier that if you have no documents, you can enter around the side, subsidised by the French, which in turn subsidised by the taxpayer. And one from Paula in Salford, replace Space Mountain with Rubbish Mountain in the new theme park. Avoid the giant rats in the dark on a roller coaster, peg for nose supplied. Just brilliant. You guys are absolutely fantastic. Keep them coming. You can text them into 87222 and, of course, you can send us a voice note to 0344 499 1000. Here's Nick on the grooming gangs.
Morning, Mike and Theo. It's Nick Moore from Loughborough. Just when I thought that my hatred for this government couldn't get any more intense, I proved myself wrong. Their ability or their willingness to ignore, set aside the most vile, heinous crimes against children in the name of political expediency is nothing short of a national disgrace. I hope this sees the end of this shower of incompetence. Have a good day, both of you.
You're absolutely right. I think we've got one more clip to play from Katie Lamb, actually, which is her talking about local leaders. Have a look at this.
Over 3 months since the government announced these local inquiries, Tom Crowther KC, a barrister invited by the Home Office to help establish them, knows almost nothing about their progress, and neither do we. Why is the framework for local inquiries now being led by ministers rather than by independent voices such as Tom Crowther? Why is the £5 million set aside for inquiries no longer being allocated but instead delivered on an opt-in basis? And what does the government intend to do about local leaders who say there is no need for an independent inquiry, like in Bradford or in Wales?
Absolutely extraordinary performance by Katie Lamb, and we're going to try and get her on the show over the next few days, because she's done a brilliant job there in Parliament, speaking up for the poor families and the poor young girls who have been so desperately betrayed by this government, who don't want to do anything which could be construed as anti-Muslim, which is so ridiculous. Absolutely unbelievable. Let's talk about Prince Harry. Royals estranged for 14 months. Front page of The Sun this morning, it's got Prince Harry, whose bald spot is getting rather large, by the way. Jets to the UK for court whinge over security, but doesn't visit his father, the King, nearby. Apparently flew in just before his dad, King Charles, went off to Italy for a sort of state visit over there, but didn't actually bother to go and see him.
No, I thought that was, you know, I thought it was a great shame. I thought, you know, the King Charles is not very well.
No.
He's had to postpone this. I mean, this trip to Italy was obviously due to take place earlier, but given his treatment for cancer, it's had to be postponed.
Right.
And you just think that actually Harry could have arranged his visit in for this court appearance to sort his security in a way that would enable him to see his dad.
And this sort of perpetual victimisation of himself about how, poor me, you know, I'm flying in especially to cost the taxpayer hundreds of thousands of pounds because we're having to put up, you know, KCs and barristers and teams of lawyers to fight him over something which he really doesn't even need. You know, he stepped out of a car yesterday, it happened on our show, with about 6 security people around him, right? Walked into the court with those same people around him in order to argue that he doesn't have enough security. Yeah. You know, it beggars belief.
And he has a bespoke arrangement, which, and this is what the court heard yesterday, which has been put forward by a group within a committee, a special committee called RAVEC, and it argued actually that the security arrangement that they'd provided had left him better off.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not quite sure he's got his priorities right. If he was going to fly into the country for anything, I thought he'd been to see his dad.
Well, you would think so. A couple of other stories that we haven't touched upon. Front page of the Daily Express, Bonkers Council bans VE Day parade for being too elitist. This is their excuse, right? Richard Tice has actually had a go over this. He's labelled the stance by Liberal Democrat-run Decorum Borough Council, rather strangely named, who've said, you know, we can't have an 80th anniversary of D-Day or VE Day because it is elitist. I mean, what sort of idiots are these people that run local councils? It's absolutely extraordinary, isn't it?
Yes, I don't look. This year is going to be one of the last, I would have thought, commemorations for VE Day.
Yeah.
What is it? If I'm correct, it's 45, 80 years. So I don't understand why
wouldn't you want to celebrate
to do it,
right?
And I just don't and it
this is, by the way, it's a Lib Dem council. This is in the same week that Ed Davey has been telling everybody to buy British goods, but they're actually rejecting a British ceremony.
But what I fear for more of this is that I think about my grandfather who fought in the Second World War, who told me about, you know, what he did, and what makes my blood boil with this is I think that actually that we forget what so many
the sacrifices
of a whole generation of men.
Yeah.
You
want your children to remember
and
that
you want
as
your
well.
children, and we lose our sense of identity if we can't think back to what they did.
Yes.
And if we just say actually it's too elitist or this isn't for us, we forget the not just the sacrifices in terms of people who gave their lives, but people who lived with injuries for the rest of their lives, or the mental torment for the rest of their lives by what they saw. And I just think, you know, this council in Hemel Hempstead, they lose what's important. What makes this country great? It's our history.
It's our history.
And
it's
it
living
shouldn't be
history.
just. and it shouldn't just be, and very soon it won't be living history because this is probably the last commemoration where there'll be any survivors from that period of time, any commemoration.
Yes.
And once they're gone, there's nobody to tell those stories, and we have to remember to tell those stories. And if we think, oh, it's too elitist, or it's not one for us.
And what they really mean by too elitist, by the way, is not too elitist. They mean it's too white, and it's too British, and it's too monocultural, and it doesn't include, you know, our friends who are from other countries. Actually, it does.
It does.
Because the people who fought in the Second World War on our side were from many countries in the world.
Right across the Commonwealth.
You know?
And beyond.
And you don't have to say it, because it's just there.
Yes,
it's a fact.
And right across the Commonwealth and beyond fought in the Second World War and gave their lives as in World War II. And my real concern is that we'll come to in 10 years' time, we'll come to the 90th anniversary, 90-year commemorations. There won't be anybody there to tell the story, and that there'll be, instead of, you know, decorum council in Hemel Hempstead actually being put back in its box this time round, there'll be dozens and dozens of councils going across the country. Oh well, what does this matter to us? Why should we do it? Too elitist. And actually,
I know,
and the whole moment will
Give
be
me
lost.
another idea for the theme park, which I'd forgotten about. Palestinian section. You've got to have the Hamas supporters over in the corner, you know, chanting from the river to the sea with the headbands on, covering their faces with masks, waving Palestinian flags, you know, chanting for the end of Israel. Let's talk about another amazing story, actually, front page of the Telegraph. Labour's nationalisation of a train company will cost an extra £250 million after a blunder by civil servants. We keep being told that we have these magnificent civil servants. You can't sack them because they really, really hold the country together. These guys apparently made a negotiating error. By that, I don't know what that actually means, but it sounds to me like they made a major F up, right? Basically, taxpayers are going to spend an extra $50 million a year to lease South West trains back, and they forgot they'd have to do it.
Yes, so they did the negotiation.
I mean, come on.
sort of carry on. Yeah, they did the negotiation. They thought they'd got this great deal to nationalise South Western Rails, which of course covers large part of the southern England. And it's going to, of course, all kick in on May the 25th. And they thought, great, fantastic. But what they hadn't accounted for was actually the trains don't come with the railways.
Right.
So they've now got to spend an extra 50 million quid a year leasing
So
the
presumably
trains.
the people they were negotiating with knew this and just let them carry on. I mean, because the rings run round them by unions, by the train companies, because everybody else knows that the civil servants actually don't live in the real world, and they kind of like, you know, oh, OK, we'll just sign here, that'll be fine. Absolutely great. You know,
no, you wouldn't. Nobody would stop. So they thought, OK, for our however many billions to renationalise this particular railway, what am I actually getting?
Yes.
If we just put you're just getting the railway itself, we would think, well, actually now they've clocked that actually it doesn't come with the trains, and they've got to pay even more money.
Yeah, I mean, would you like some trains as well? Oh, I didn't realise, you know. It's like somebody selling you a car and going, actually, it didn't include the wheels, you know. Do you want to buy some wheels? Yeah. Speaking of which, a coked-up ambulance driver had a crash while he was answering a 999 call. I mean, this sums up to me the state of our nation. You know, we're always hearing about how great our paramedics are in this country, how brilliant the NHS is, but apparently, according to this story, Colin Stewart, aged 54, was spared jail due to his exemplary record and the life-saving that he's done during his career, but unfortunately he crashed his ambulance on the A34 in Burnage in Manchester on August last year. 3 people were treated in hospital as a result. So you get the ambulance with this guy. A couple of the people had nothing wrong with them when they got in. They were just accompanying a sick person, and by the time they got to the hospital, he crashed the thing, and they needed treatment. Coked up paramedic. I mean, what is going on?
Yeah. Brendan Hart, the chair of the bench, said in normal circumstances he would have been jailed. But whatever the reason that has caused your spiral downwards, it is no excuse. But he's spared him jailed. Stuart, you'll be relieved to know if you're requiring
He's no longer driving an ambulance.
He's been sacked and is now unemployed.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's get a voice note from Chris on the theme parks.
Morning, Mike. Morning, Theo. Chris from Epsom. You can also have Hoyle's Hotel, where when you make your booking, you tell them how to redecorate the room just for you. Have a great day.
That is brilliant. People are so clever here. Finally, the story of the day for me. Elton John and Madonna have made up. right?
Finally.
Apparently they've had a feud for ages. He used to call her all sorts of terrible things. The Sun's got this story on page 7. He called her a fairground stripper and accused her of lip syncing. But apparently they met backstage at a show that they were both doing on Saturday Night Live in America, and everything is now fine in the garden.
And they're going to record a song together so we can all rest easy. I didn't even know that maybe
I can't remember the feud.
I can't remember the feud. Anyway, they're now they've buried the hatchet. We finally buried the hatchet. Madonna wrote on Instagram, over the decade it hurt me to know someone I admired so much shared his dislike of me publicly as an artist.
Yeah.
But now it's
Well
all
done,
happy. It's all now happy families.
Wonderful stuff, isn't it? Great to see you. Thank you, Theo. Pete the Mole says, theme park Pirates of the Caribbean show explains where the government will be during the recess. Yeah, good one. With regard to the theme park, says Taylor, in Dyne in Leicestershire, a whack-a-mole game called Just Stop Hoyle. Guess the destination he'll pop up in and knock him back down. Brilliant. Theo, good to see you.
Great to see you, Mike.
We're going to keep this theme park theme going. They're building a new theme park in Britain. What should be in it? That's what I'm asking you. Coming up, we'll be exploring all manner of things, including the grooming gang's scandal. This is Talk. We've just been talking in the office here about how many of us have been attacked at some point or other by some form of flying beast or any wildlife. I mean, so we'll take your stories this morning.
Hello, this story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino? Blimey.
Right? Yeah,
okay.
rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field. Put your foot down." This rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, cripes, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster?
One here from Dan in Hampshire. Morning, Mike. As an Aussie that has been dive bombed by our version of the magpie, which is much bigger, every springtime, the folk in...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 7. The sun is shining. It's very, very bright out there today. It's going to be lovely and warm. We are moving swiftly into spring, it has to be said. You know what to do. Unfortunately, if you live in Birmingham, what that means is that the Birmingham rubbish tip will get even bigger and even smellier over the course of the next 12 hours or so. Ratman has made an appearance up there. We're going to be talking about him and maybe to him. We might find him before the end of the show. Also, of course, we're talking this morning about a great many things, including the British theme theme park which is being opened up in Bedfordshire. We're asking for your ideas as to what should actually be in the theme park. The ride stuff, it says on the front page of the Daily Mirror. Actually, I mean, if it does turn out to be what it says it's going to be, 28,000 jobs are going to be created, £50 billion boosting the economy, which is all good news. But we've been having a bit of fun asking you what should be in a British-themed theme park. Here's Phil.
Good morning, Mike. Phil from Hertfordshire. Mike, a little suggestion for the theme park. We could have the dinghy rapids. If you manage to stay on at the end of the ride, you get a free coat, a mobile phone, a credit card with a fiver on it, and they'll put you up for the night in the local hotel.
Brilliant. The migrant hotel at the theme park, of course, has been that you won't be able to get a room there because it's already full up. You have to move on and go somewhere else, I'm afraid. 0344 499 1000. The big major story there, of course, is Labour has dropped plans for a grooming gang inquiry. Jess Phillips made the announcement yesterday at the last knockings, basically, of the final day of Parliament before the Easter recess. And I think that was cynical. I think it was a manoeuvre deliberately, supposedly set up so that nobody would talk about it and everybody would just accept it. We'll be talking about that coming up in this hour because people are very, very unhappy about it at all. The government says they're going to take a flexible approach to the grooming gangs inquiry, in which basically they will say they'll make money available to local councils, but it will be up to them to do with that money what they wish. What an absolute and utter cop-out. What a betrayal of those young women who were treated so badly, mistreated so badly, and violently attacked by these ghastly gangs of grooming men from Pakistan. Rape gangs is what we really should be calling them. We've also got a VE Day being cancelled by a local council in Hemel Hempstead because it's going to be too elitist. Mick says, what is this country coming to? How dare that council cancel VE Day? There's no sense of pride, and many died so people can live a decent life. Absolutely right. I could not agree with you more. Keir Starmer's attacked the OBR, an organisation that he once loved. A nationalisation gaffe of the train system has cost us, it turns out, £250 million. And we'll talk a little bit about the tariffs, but not very much really, because everything seems to be sort of flattening out. If there's a trade war between China and the USA, who cares, is what I say. It's 5 minutes past 7. This is Morning Glory. Deb says this for the theme park. How about grow your own cannabis farm? Yeah, that's a good one. Absolutely brilliant. And we've got loads of them coming in on Twitter as well. Let me just read you a couple of the ones that I've got here. Where are we? Here's one from Perry, who says you can even have your memories captured on film with a photo taken by our Angie's official photographer. And maybe for the UK theme park, says Deb. So we've got that one. An Ethiopian safari park narrated by Angela Rayner, says Gary in Durham. How about that? Very good. Excellent stuff. We're going to talk to Joanna Bell now, political journalist, about the big story of the day, which, of course, is not just what's going on in Birmingham with the rats and the rubbish piling up and all of that, but it's also, of course, about the disgraceful behaviour yesterday of the Labour government and Jess Phillips, who got up and had the bare-faced kind of cheek to say that we're not going to have a grooming gangs inquiry after all. We're just going to drop it and we're going to let the local councils deal with it. Joanne, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm very well indeed. I mean, this is extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, on the very last day of Parliament, literally kind of, half an hour before they closed the doors of the House of Commons, Jess Phillips gets up and says that we're not going to do this grooming inquiry after all, even though they promised that they would look into it. They promised that they would look into doing something nationally. They've now dropped it altogether.
Well, how can they do an investigation, Mike, when, you know, some of their representatives are being implicated in the investigation? You know, Jess Phillips, I feel sorry for her because she's the one that has to deliver the news, but I'm sure that she would be interested in launching an investigation. However, you know, there's already Labour MP Dan Norris has been investigated for child porn. They had that MP 2 years ago, Imran Ahmed Khan, who was sentenced to 18 months for, you know, getting a 15-year-old boy drunk and sexually abusing him. So, you know, they really can't. And then they had a few years ago, they had Eric Joyce, an MP, who was convicted of looking at child pornography. Yeah. So really, you know, their hands aren't clean in this. So it would be very embarrassing for them to launch an investigation when it could implicate a lot more of their members.
Yes, but that makes it in some ways even worse. Let's have a look at what Katie Lamb had to say. She's an MP for Kent from the opposition, from the Tory side. And I must admit, I didn't know much about Katie Lamb before this, but this is an incredible speech from her.
There is no question that the state has failed these children time and again. Take the case of Anna from Bradford. Vulnerable and in residential care, at the age of 14, she made repeated reports of rape and abuse to social workers who were responsible for her. But just the following year, aged 15, she married her abuser in a traditional Islamic wedding ceremony. Far from stepping in to stop it, her social worker was aghast. The authorities then arranged for her to be fostered by her abuser's parents. The ringleader of the Rochdale rape gang, Shabir Ahmed, was employed as a welfare rights officer by Oldham Council. And yet not one person, not one, has been convicted for covering up these institutionalised rapes.
And she spoke very, very eloquently and very well on this subject and basically tore the Labour government apart for this. But I've got no confidence whatsoever that any of these councils in Oldham or, you know, Rochdale or any of these parts of the north where this has all been going on will do anything about this.
No, of course they won't. I mean, it's very, very embarrassing for them. What will happen is it's just all going to be swept under the carpet and it'll be forgotten about until the next scandal happens. That's what's happening, and, you know, it's a massive cover-up.
Yeah, it really is.
There's nothing else.
It really is. And I've got this from David, who says, Jess Phillips, all I hear about this woman is that she's done so much for women's rights, etc. If she really cared about these girls and had any conscience, then she would have resigned about the decision to cancel the watered-down inquiry into rape gangs. As it is, she has revealed her true colours and that her career and salary are much more important than her principles, which have been laid bare for all to realise that, like the government, she does not care about the white working class. And there is a sense, isn't there, in this government, Joanna, that the one group of people that they care less about than everybody else is white working class people.
Well, that could be said, but, you know, I do feel that Jess has been handed a poison chalice. This has been going on for many years. And, you know, she has done a lot for domestic violence victims.
Yeah, but how can she abandon these girls? I mean, she's supposed to be an advocate for women and girls, and she fights for them and all the rest of it, but she doesn't want to do it this time.
Well, I'm sure she probably wants to do it, but she can't, because it will probably, an investigation will probably lay bare the, you know, the amount of Labour representatives that are involved in this scandal. So it might, you know, precipitate the implosion of the Labour Party if they do investigate it.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's talk about a couple of other things that are going on around the country. The Birmingham bin strike is causing all sorts of problems for the Labour Party as well, because it's now becoming a national story. I mean, they've kind of tried to stay out of it. Angela Rayner was quoted over the weekend as saying, you know, it's time for the Unite Union to sit down around the table with the council and do a deal, but they still haven't managed to do that. They've sat down and walked out. But it's really becoming a sort of a national health hazard story now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's disgraceful. So what happened was they said that they had to pay the bin man as much as cleaners and cooks that work for the council. So they had to give the bin men, some of them experienced an $8,000 pay cut in their wages because of equality and the fact that the unions wanted cleaners and cooks to be paid the same as bin men. So now that's why the bin men are you know, protesting, and rightly so. There shouldn't be equality. Bin men have the worst job in, you know, the country, and, you know, a cleaner and a cook is a much more desirable job. So therefore the bin men should get paid more.
Yeah, I mean, the bin men say that they are being squeezed. They say it's not about money. We interviewed them at Unite last week, and they said, look, it's not about money. However, it actually is about money, because they're being asked to do a lot more work for a lot less.
Well, exactly, and they shouldn't have to be. You know, this is disgraceful. The judge ruled that the council is bankrupt. You know, they've had lawsuits where people say they haven't been paid, their pay has been unequal. And so, you know, Birmingham Council has been absolutely taken to the cleaners over this, and they really don't have any money. They cannot, unless they bring the cleaners and the cooks' pay up to the same as the bin man, they really can't do anything except lower the bin man's pay. So they've reached an impasse. So who knows what's going to happen moving forward?
Yeah, well, if they don't do something soon, I mean, it really will be a massive, massive health hazard problem at the moment. We've already got men dressing up as rats to go and appear in front of the various committees up there to try and solve it. And Britain has become a kind of laughingstock. We're doing a story this morning about this British theme park, which is opening up in a couple of years' time up in Bedfordshire. And some of the ideas that people are giving me for it are hilarious. They're saying, you know, replace Space Mountain with Rubbish Mountain, you know, and try and make your way down it without getting chewed up by a rat and all this kind of thing. You know, people all around the world are making Britain into a laughingstock.
Well, I mean, it's already been like that for a while, but it couldn't be as bad as America, Mike. You know, they're a much bigger laughingstock than Britain now, so we've passed on the baton.
Are they? Why?
Well, you know, with the tariffs and everything, they've managed to alienate pretty much every single country in the world. And, you know, it doesn't look like it's going to get much better. So,
well, yeah, but hang on. There's about 70 countries that have decided to start negotiating with Donald Trump about the tariffs, and the only people he seems to be really upsetting are the Chinese, which, as far as I'm concerned, is a good thing.
Well, possibly, but, you know, the forecasters are saying, if they can be believed, that, you know, even if they do make an agreement and everything's fine, the damage to the stock markets is going to be felt for years to come.
Well, I disagree with you about that as well, because, you know, they started bouncing back yesterday, and if you look at the actual the trajectory of the FTSE 100, for example, over 5 years, it's literally going like that all the way up to there, and then there's a little blip at the end, which is what just happened in the first couple of days of this week. So, I mean, you know, they are resilient. Stock markets have always been resilient, and talking to financial advisors, they're all saying, actually, now is a great time to invest, because everything's gone so low that you buy now and you wait for it to go up again.
Well, possibly. It's, you know, like you were very positive about Trump last week. I'm not sure if you're still obviously very positive about it. But
yeah, because, you know, he's sticking to the script. He's sticking to what he said he would do. He's doing what he was elected to do, and he's making life better for people in America, and they all still back him. He's still got massive, you know, positivity ratings. People still like what he's doing, and most people, as I said to you last week, don't really understand international trade. They don't really understand tariffs. They don't really understand anything until it starts affecting the price of goods, and at the moment it hasn't affected them.
Well, all you can do really is, you know, cross your fingers and hope that there is method to Trump's madness. You know, I'm glad that you're still positive about it, but there's people in America, you know, there's thousands of people coming out to protest against.
Yeah, these are all the kind of nutters that set fire to Teslas, though. I mean, you take one look at them, and you can see that they're about 2 steps away from living in a teepee, you know, halfway up, you know, a mountain in New York State. You know, these are not people to be taken seriously.
Well, possibly, but, you know, I mean, there's a massive worldwide unrest about what's happening. Could it culminate?
Oh, yeah, all the lefties are absolutely squealing like stuck pigs, but, you know, that doesn't mean they're right, does it?
Well, they're saying it's going to be a bigger recession, global recession, than in 2008.
Right.
So
that's rubbish.
I don't want to be the
Absolute
pessimist
I
here.
made a bet yesterday with Dan Hodges. I'll make one with you if you want. It will not happen.
Okay, I'll bet. How much?
But yesterday was £100, I think, so I'll go for another 100. That'll be 200 quid I'm in for.
A deal.
All right, fine. Good one. British Steel, front page of The Guardian today. Apparently Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are actively considering the nationalisation of British Steel. Heaven forbid that this government should take over any companies, because it turns out from another nationalisation nightmare on the front page of The Telegraph, they nationalised a train company, but civil servants made a mistake when they were negotiating the deal, and it's now going to cost taxpayers an extra 250 million quid. So I would say hands off British Steel, because you don't know what you're bleeding well doing.
Well, exactly, and that's up in Scunthorpe, I believe.
Yeah.
And I mean, it would be great if they nationalise it, if they had some great minds behind, you know, the running of it. But I'm not holding out much hope.
Labour doesn't have any great minds, I'm afraid. They haven't got any great politicians either. They're all completely and utterly useless. But listen, Joanna, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. I'll look forward to getting 100 quid off you later on this year. Political journalist there. Let's get a voice note from Dave.
Morning, Mike. Dave from Portsmouth. About the theme park ride, can we have the parliamentary ride? It'll just be a lie from the start, telling you how good the ride is, but actually it ends up being a load of rubbish. It'll be full of twists and turns, and it can start at the beginning of the ride with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Whee!
Yay! One here from Joe in Cornwall. The Great British Theme Park, funded by the taxpayer. One attraction would be Millie Golf, Ed Miliband's Crazy Golf, where the windmill is stuck and blocks the access to the hole, and the lanes are full of potholes where you lose the ball. Yay! Absolutely right. And one of these, how about this from Steve? He says, try the new British Theme Park water flume ride full of sewage. These are brilliant. It's 18 minutes past 7.
We're letting the British people down, Kevin, is what we're doing. Of course we are. How can we ever fly how can we fly a display team? The Royal Air Force, the oldest air force in the world, how on earth can we portray ourselves out to the rest of the world without flying a British aircraft? It doesn't make sense, but maybe it's not supposed to make sense. It's just another thing, isn't it, that's going to drag this country down.
But what you're saying, Tim, and it's very important, is that the government, if it made some effort, could find a company to make a great jet for the Red Arrows.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 21 minutes past 7. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock for a glorious hours of Morning Glory every single weekday morning from 6 until 10. The weather is absolutely brilliant, absolutely fantastic. Phil from Chelmsford says you could have a Release the Sausages escape room with a Starmer countdown to let you know when to start. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And also, of course, the Great British Theme Park would have Ed's electric bumper cars, says Joe in Cornwall, where the ride costs a fortune and the electricity runs out after 2 minutes. Brian has got a voice note for us on VE Day.
Morning, Mike. Brian from the South End. I'm fuming, mate. I'm absolutely devastated, disgusted. How dare they cancel the VE celebrations? You know, what right have they got to do that? And on behalf of who? Not the people who live there, I'm sure, because everyone who lives there, more or less, has probably had someone connected. Their grandparents, their whatever, their great-grandparents. And it's because of them that these idiots who run that council are allowed to do and say what they bloody want. I'm fuming.
Yeah. Absolutely, as you should be, Brian. A couple of people share your view. Mick says this: what is this country coming to? How dare that council cancel VE Day? There's no sense of pride, and many people died, so people can live a decent life now. And Kenny from Edinburgh says, Mike, the VE Day parade is definitely elitist because those veterans were the greatest generation, so they deserve to be considered as elite. Much respect and thanks to those people. I'll never stop celebrating them, and will stick 2 fingers up to the council if they try to stop me. Yeah, absolutely right. Let's talk to Rupert Bell, royal correspondent, of course, here at Talk, because the front page of most of the papers has got a picture of one kind or another of Prince Harry arriving at court, surrounded by the security that he says he doesn't get. incredibly. He's been making out that he's been singled out as a special case to be ignored. Well, if only we could ignore him. Front page of The Sun, of course, says, moan alone. Harry jets to the UK for a court whinge over security, but doesn't visit his father, the King, nearby. Rupert Bell can tell us why. Rupert, very good morning to you.
Good morning. I think probably the reason he didn't see him, Mike, is because the King, probably while this court case on, is trying to keep a distance, because he may be concerned that anything he says might, in the end, prejudice this appeal into his security arrangements. And also, let's not forget, he was heading off to Italy to conduct a state visit, which is still ongoing. So that was very much his priority. Harry jetting into this court case, which he doesn't actually need to be at, it has grabbed all the headlines, taking it away from his father, who is also celebrating his 20th wedding anniversary at the moment. So, you know, he's away doing what really matters on behalf of this country. Harry is here. We won't obviously know, but has been given the right to appeal, so he's perfectly entitled to do that. But again, it's about, he feels that he's been singled out for poor treatment since his departure from being a working royal. So, but
yeah, good. I wish we'd single him out more and ban him from actually coming to this country, ban him from taking any more taxpayers' money to launch more appeals about his own selfish ways. And I would think single him out even more and victimise him even more. That's what I would say.
Well, he's still a member of the royal family, and he's still, even if he was in America, he's still, I suppose, could be perceived as a target for somebody if he really wanted.
A target for ridicule, in my view.
Well, at the moment, there doesn't seem to be a great deal of PR going in his favour, and it's not, you know, obviously he's had his problems with his charity, Centre Barley, which, you know, again, when he pulled out being a trustee in that, things aren't going particularly well for him. And then there's talk that he could have perhaps gone and seen gone to a friend's wedding, but he didn't. Right. You know, he's very much isolated from all his friends here in Britain, and so he'll go back to Montecito. And probably what he won't be wanting to do is read some of the reviews for his wife's podcast, which came out yesterday, which are pretty damning, it has to be said. Yeah. And I'm going to add fuel to that fire and say it was the most inane 45 minutes trollop I've ever heard. Okay, there were one or two.
I mean, it's called The Female Founder, isn't it? Confessions of a Female Founder. So you've listened to it, Rupert. What does she actually talk about?
Well, they talk about... Well, OK, we hear that Meghan obviously had complications with pregnancy. Well, you know, but what we wanted to hear is from the founder of Bumble. Let's hear some really good insights. This is a 35-year-old woman who's clearly been very successful, yet it all turns out about, you know, Meghan wakes up at 3 o'clock wondering how with packaging issues.
Right. Packaging issues? What do you mean?
Well, packaging her fruit, you know, for sending out, and how it looks for the public.
Okay.
And actually, when you listen to it, you can't. I was struggling to differentiate between who was talking. They sound exactly the same.
Right.
I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but that's just what But actually, we didn't really get the kind of high-profile insights that you could get from a woman who's did work for Tinder, then set up Bumble, which have been incredibly successful.
But this is what she did last time, isn't it? She interviewed people like Serena Williams, and it turned out to be about her, and actually didn't find anything out about Serena Williams at all.
Well, that's what it once again felt about, and it seemed like the guest was just endlessly praising Meghan.
Yeah.
Whereas it should have been the other way around, as far as I could work out, because that's the point of a podcast. Here's a woman who's achieved a lot. And what you're actually hearing is two very rich women. This woman is also married to a bloke who's worth 400 million. So they live in a world that none of us live in.
Yeah.
So it was a bit surreal. So, but, you know, the reviews, you can read any... I've yet to find one that has given it anything more than a 2-star out of 5 or maybe a 3 out of 5.
Well, I mean,
so
this is the thing.
Where it is.
You know, Harry leaving the ranch in Montecito to come to Britain, maybe he just needed to get away from it for a while, just to give himself a bit of a break.
I couldn't possibly comment, Mike. It's I'm not privy to the inner movings of the... But what is interesting is she's just ploughing on with her Instagram... whatever she's
life.
Got,
well, it's an Instagram life she's got now, isn't it? That's it.
Yeah, ploughing on with as ever and the products and this podcast. Yet she's never once defended him and supported him.
No.
It would seem, and he's got lost centre. Barley, he's been very high profile in defending her, yet we've never once heard her say, well, you know, I think defend him, because there's an element when you look at the centre Barley breakdown that Meghan is at the heart of it, and part of the problem of the fallout with the relationship between Dr. Sophie Chandorka and Harry, because he has defended his wife and wanted Dr. Sophie Chandorka, it would seem, to put out there that his wife was not at fault.
No,
so
and let's not
it seems
forget,
to be a one-way street at the moment.
Exactly, and let's not forget, you know, it's not just about a row between him and the woman who runs the charity. It's now being investigated by the Charities Commission to see whether or not there was any actual impropriety going on.
Exactly. So there is an element of he said, she said about the whole thing. So, you know, we will get to the truth, but I'm sure Dr. Sophie Chandorka she's a high-flying lawyer whose family are the third biggest donor to the charity, so they are wholly committed to it. So, you know, it will be quite interesting what the Charity Commission reveals. It will also be quite interesting, obviously, when we know what the result of this Court of Appeal is with regard to Harry's security, and has he wasted a whole lot of money? That will, again, but I still don't think, even if he is allowed to have the security, I'm pretty convinced Meghan's not going to be on the first flight to this country.
No, I think even she, despite the thickness of her rhinoceros-like skin, understands that people here don't really want to see her and don't really like her. There's a pretty good chance that if she did go out in public, she'd probably get booed.
Yes, but even if she wanted to come for a private visit to try and bring her grandchildren to go and see their children to go and see their grandparents, I'm not sure she's in a hurry to ever come back into this country, even though a lot of her products are all about the British way of life, whether it be jam, tea, you know, and other things that seem to be very quintessentially British, yet she doesn't want to come to this country at all.
Well, maybe there's a place in the British theme park that we've been talking about this morning for Harry and Meghan, and perhaps a coconut shy, you know, without wishing to be unkind. People would probably pay good money to throw coconuts at Meghan and Harry's sort of pictures, and maybe, you know, try and throw one through Harry's mouth or something like that. I don't know.
Again, I think I'll sit on the fence with that one, Mike. I'll leave you to.
Is there day 2 today of the court case? Is he back in court?
Day 2 today. It's a 2-day hearing, I believe. So when we get the result, I'm not sure. But obviously, that's the plan. Will he go back straight away to California, or will he wait for the return of his father? Maybe to have a meeting with it, or to meet him. I'm just not sure, but I'm not sure it's high on the.
And is he staying anywhere royal at the moment when he's here, or is he back at Claridge's or something?
I don't know his place of abode, but normally when he comes in, he seems to find a hotel to stay in rather than one of the royal residences in London, which I'm sure he could stay in if he wanted to.
Perhaps Lindsay Hoyle could put him up in one of his Grace and Favour apartments that he spends so much money on.
Well, he could use one of his private jets, couldn't he?
Well, yeah, absolutely right. So you don't mind having to go at the politicians, it's just the royal family you don't want to have to go at.
Well,
it's shocking hypocrisy from you, Mr. Bell.
Well, you know, come on, Mike, you know.
By the way, did I tell you about the Lizzie Clark tip?
Well, you better get her name right. It's Lizzie Kelly.
Lizzie Kelly, sorry. Lizzie Kelly.
I don't know where you got Lizzie Clark from.
I don't know.
Kelly,
I must have known somebody called Lizzie Clark in my past.
Could you comment more there, Mike?
No,
it's your
absolutely
turn.
not. No, I can't remember anything else. Just a name. Anyway, listen, good to see you, Rupert. Thank you very much indeed. Rupert Bell, a man that won't comment on the Royals, but quite happy to slag off Lindsay Hoyle. Not Lindsay Clark, by the way. I don't know where that came from. How about this from Kay? Morning, Mike. Theme park idea. Hot dog stand with the slogan, release the sausages. from somebody doesn't
the
even know.
return of the sausages.
Another theme park attraction for this is great. Pothole Palace. Take your vehicle around the route, try to avoid bursting your tyres and being swallowed up with a giant sinkhole. Let's talk to Paul in Brighton. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Mike. How are
you doing, sir?
Yeah, great, thanks. Great show.
Good
really
man, thank you. You want to talk about VE Day?
Yeah, all it was, I seem to recall as a kid, very much so actually, that there was a bus conductor. Do you remember the days when you used to have a bus conductor?
Sure.
And as kids, we all used to stare at him because he'd been hideously disfigured in the Second World War.
Yeah.
But as I've obviously grown older, I appreciate the fact of what that guy must have gone through and his bravery in the war, and not only that, his bravery in carrying on doing a very high-profile job on the buses, looking as sadly disfigured as he did.
Yes.
It's just, you know, and as you get older, you realise the sacrifices
Absolutely.
these people made, and the bravery he showed in his subsequent life.
Yeah, and isn't it shocking that these councillors would say, well, no, we can't have a commemoration of that, it's too elitist?
Oh, please don't start me on councillors. We've got the ludicrous bride. Yes, yeah, don't start me on the Green Council.
No, absolutely right. Listen, good to talk to you, Paul. Thanks very much. How about this from Deborah? Here's a theme park idea. How about a coked-up ambulance ride? Here's Graham on the theme park theme.
Hiya, Mike. Graham in Liverpool. How about at the theme park ride, we have the Lord Alley, where, a bit like Mr. Ben, you get to try on costumes, perhaps in this case suits, glasses, and you go through little adventures in places like Ethiopia. You get to go to Grand Cayman Islands. Brilliant.
Fantastic. The Lord Alley. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's not like a bowling alley. You just get to try stuff on. Absolutely brilliant. 7:34.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:36. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until, of course, the 10 o'clock hour when it's time for Julie Hartley-Brewer. Mike, Jess Phillips, safeguarding and violence against women and girls. Rubbish. No respect at all. She's another waste of time just thinking about herself, says Helen in Brum. Apparently, one from... where is it? Where is it? We can find there's more on Jess Phillips coming down, but there's so much coming in on the theme park that this is the one I wanted. Bobby says Jess Phillips is the master of publicity stunts, like all Labour. She stands up every year to read names of victims of male aggression, but then keeps quiet because the Muslims in her ward won't vote for her the next time. If she was morally driven, she would condemn the leadership on their attempt to water down this inquiry. We all know Starmer and Cooper tried their best not to have one, says Bob in Chiswick. And And is there a way the whole country could club together to pay for a proper inquiry for these poor girls damaged from these filthy grooming gangs? This is a cruel, evil government. I could weep for all the rot going on, says Elizabeth. Well, I mean, as I mentioned in the first hour of the show, Rupert Lowe, former Reform MP, has actually collected something like £500,000 to do an inquiry into the grooming gang situation, but nobody's really quite sure how that's going to work and what sort of inquiry it's going to be and whether it will be in any way binding and whether they can actually command people to appear and talk before it. And that is the problem with being just one independent MP, I'm afraid. We've got lots of voice notes coming in, lots of your messages on the theme park front, of course. We're asking for your ideas on what would be in a British theme park, and some of them have been, quite frankly, hilarious. Here's a voice note from Jill.
Morning, Mike. Jill from Northampton. Great show as ever. The theme park has a lake, and in the middle of a lake is Chagos Island. But it's okay because the theme park pays you to visit the island. So you can go as many times as you like and earn money. A win-win.
Fantastic.
Bye for now.
Brilliant. Jill, thank you very much indeed. Presumably it's 9 million every time you go to Chagos Island. How about the Sussex slide at the theme park? It's downhill all the way and ends in tears. I can't do it. I can't take it. Ross Feingold's here, a political risk analyst on the Asian front. Very good morning to you, Ross.
Good morning from Formosa, or what some people still call Free China.
Free China, blimey. Listen, 2 Chinese citizens captured fighting for Russia in eastern Ukraine. This story broke yesterday, sort of late afternoon. Vladimir Zelensky reported it. Quite a story. We're told there's about half a dozen of them, perhaps, in a group fighting for the Russians. But some people have said to me, this is obviously just a sort of a rogue group. It's nothing official. What do you make of it?
It's probably not official. Look, Russia has been recruiting foreign fighters ever since the war began. They've recruited people from Africa, from South Asia, and apparently from East Asia as well. Just like Ukraine has also recruited foreign fighters. Sometimes, though, it's people who've been recruited to fight Russia. They've talked about the pay not being what was promised. They've died on the battlefield, and all their families get is a letter. It's difficult to repatriate the bodies. So obviously, Russia's not taking care of its foreign fighters the same way Ukraine is. But for official interaction, or for China to learn through official channels about the front and about the war and about technology and weapons, they have other channels to do that. They could go on an attaché to attaché basis and go to the front. I don't think that these were official. Chances are they were just people either looking for adventure or looking for money. But that being said, Mike, this is hugely embarrassing for the Chinese government because they pride themselves on saying, even though they're close to Russia, that we don't take sides in this and we just hope for peace. That's their official line, notwithstanding the increasingly close cooperation between Russia and China.
Yes, because they're buying an awful lot of Russian energy at the moment, aren't they? They're buying an awful lot of that Russian gas that they can't sell anymore into Europe. So the Chinese are taking it all.
That's right. Russia has been able to last this long for a number of reasons. India has also been a good customer for Russian energy, but China is their best customer. And China provides a lot of manufactured goods that Russia simply doesn't make. Russia manufactures weapons. They take energy out of the ground. But when it comes to making other household products and things like that, they really have no manufacturing base, so they rely on cheap goods from China.
Right. And just as a matter of interest from where you sit, what are you making of the Trump tariff row? You know, the front pages this morning talking about, 104% tariffs being put on Chinese goods, the Chinese not being very happy about it, talking about trade wars being very unhelpful. They're not going to back down. Where do you think it's all going to go?
Well, the tariff imposed on goods from here in Taiwan is 32%. So the government here in Taiwan is a little disappointed. They thought the United States had Taiwan's back in Taiwan's face-off with China, and that the United States would always protect Taiwan. But this is crashing up against the realities of Trump's trade policies. Now, look, it's hard for a lot of countries to swallow. There are going to be countries that are really shocked. They thought they were friends with the U.S., or they thought they had gone through the right channels to befriend President Trump. But President Trump at heart is a negotiator, and that's why countries are lining up to negotiate. And if some of them cut deals with the United States, Trump is just going to say, see, my policy worked.
Yeah, absolutely interesting, fascinating stuff. Good to talk to you. Ross Feingold, thanks very much indeed. In Asia, political risk analyst, saying that, this is embarrassing for China, but it's not sort of China-inspired, if you like. They found these two fighters on the Russian side in Ukraine fighting on behalf of Vladimir Putin. I wonder how many more of them there are. 0344 499 1000. Got lots and lots and lots of theme park ideas coming in. One from Mark saying this, for the theme park, how about a small boat flume? No queuing, as each boat takes at least 50 people. And how about this one? Remote control boats, says Gary in Portsmouth. You put a pound to play and the boats are full of immigrants trying to get across the channel. Great show, absolutely brilliant. How about John in Northampton for the theme park? Could there be a shooting gallery set on a London street? I did say earlier we could have some kind of stabbing scenario where you have to run through an alley wearing a stab vest and hopefully don't get stabbed. How about a large lake that you can row across, and when you get halfway there, the RNLI will come and take you to the other side, says Rob. Unbelievable. So good. Brilliant, actually. I mean, this is an absolute exhibition of how fantastic this audience is and how marvellous you all are at coming up with ideas. We've been talking about all the Katie Lamb quotes this morning from Parliament yesterday. We've got now Jess Phillips. She got up yesterday to explain why this government has decided against doing a national inquiry on rape gangs.
We are developing a new best practice framework to support local authorities which want to undertake victim-centred local inquiries or related work. Drawing on the lessons from local independent inquiries like Telford, Rotherham and Greater Manchester, we will publish the details next month. Alongside this, we will set out the process through which local authorities can access the £5 million national fund to support locally led work on grooming gangs. Following feedback from local authorities, the fund will adopt a flexible approach to support both full independent local inquiries and more bespoke work, including local victims panels or locally led audits into the handling of historic cases.
It's hard to imagine a more hypocritical woman than Jess Phillips. She's spent her entire political career banging on about how she protects women from violence by men against them. She reads out the names of women constantly, like a sort of, a register of victimhood. She talks about women all the time being injured by men and by their actions, but yet, when it comes to young, white, working-class girls, underage girls who were raped repeatedly, brutalised, tortured, and sometimes even killed by these ghastly rape gangs in the north of England and in places like Telford, in Rochdale, in Oldham, in Bradford, she hasn't got anything to say other than we won't want to do a national rape gang inquiry. How absolutely disgusting and ridiculous. Steve says, how about a Back to the Future ride where people can travel back to the 3rd of July 2024 and use their vote differently? Good morning, Mike. How about a ghost train with a bus replacement service? That's good. You could have an HS2 monorail from the car park that doesn't quite make it into the park. This is brilliant. Apparently one of the new features at the Bedford theme park is a hawk that swoops down and attacks bald-headed males. Prince Harry has already stated he won't be going. Let's get a voice note from Andy.
Morning, Mike. It's Andy from Birmingham. Just looking around, seeing all the our rodent friends scurrying around, the little squeaky blinders. Anyway, going on to the Labour theme park, I don't know if you've been to Blackpool, you've seen the Laughing Man outside the theme park. They'd have Starmer in like a glass case going, ha 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 ha, smash the gangs, ha 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 ha, we're looking after your backs, ha ha ha, I back British business, ha ha ha, Starmer.
Absolutely brilliant. We haven't had much on Angela Rayner yet for the old theme park. I mean, steady on, by the way, but with you suggestions about Angela. But I mean, what can we get? What can we get for her? You know, apart from a trip to Ethiopia land. It's 7:46.
I remember when I was in Ireland during lockdown, you had to show your health status going into fast food restaurants, and they wouldn't let you in unless you showed them a card, which basically told them everything they needed to know about your health status in that moment. It was very, very creepy. We don't want that on a general scale. We don't want that for our future. You know, the slogan I hate above all others is, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. I'm sorry, but the idea that we should throw open our entire lives to the establishment to prove we have nothing to hide, that is tyranny.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:49. We are nearly at the halfway mark of the show. We're here for 4 hours every single day, 6 a.m. Sharp is when you want to be here, in case you miss anything, because we've been talking about a great many things this morning, including the ridiculous idea that this government is now releasing the local councils and telling them that they can do their own grooming gang inquiries, and they're not going to, this national government is not going to do them. And imagine getting Jess Phillips to actually be the person to deliver that news, the woman who paints herself as the champion of women and girls, who are particularly those women and girls who have been attacked and have been beaten and have suffered from domestic abuse. But she won't stand up for white working class girls who have been the subject of rape, the subject of torture, the subject of some horrendous brutality. Absolutely unbelievable. We're also getting your ideas on what to do with the British theme park, of course, and this from Cliff, who says, how about Milliband Land? Rides cost £50 each but only last for 35 seconds depending on the wind. You can have Mike Amesbury's boxing booth. All comers welcome. And then finally, Find the Lady card game run by Tulip Sadiq. Don't expect to win anything. There you go. Very good. Let's get a voice note from Paula.
Hi Mike, it's Paula in Liverpool. I don't often disagree with you, but I have to disagree with you about Trump. You're saying people can make money out of the stock market now, but what if your money's already in it? And what if you're due to retire in a few years and your pension's taken an absolute battering, or your savings have gone down? You've got no money left to invest. It's going to take a long while to recover. And while I don't mind that some of the gains that I've made on my ISA have gone, I really get annoyed when the actual capital is being eaten into just because Trump's got beef with the EU or China. It's not on, and it's going to take a long time to come back. Thanks, Mike.
Paula, listen, you're totally and very much entitled to your view, but you're wrong, because actually when COVID happened, the stock market dived far bigger than it did in the last 2 days, right? It's already started to come back. It's a small glitch, effectively, in the life of the stock market, and certainly within the next, I would say, year, it will probably be back to where it was. And, you know, if you look at the last 5 years' history of the FTSE 100 in particular, you will see that there were several little points at which it disappeared down the gurgler and then came back up again. And if you look at COVID in particular, the gains that have been made since COVID have been extraordinary. And any financial planner will tell you that if you've got money in a pension which has lost a little bit this past week, it will all be regained probably, if not before, certainly by the end of this year, you know? And being in it for the long haul is what it's all about at the end of the day, and it's not because of Donald Trump that the business of markets has fallen. It's because of that's the nature of the beast. People make money when markets fall and when markets rise. And if you have got a little bit of spare money now in your pension fund, it's a good idea to move the money around and buy some stock which is likely to rise up. I'm told the only people who are going to be pretty upset right now are those who are holding stock in a lot of the big tech companies like Apple and Microsoft and all of those companies which are now looking a little bit more tenuous than they were just a few years ago, partly because of the way that the economy is going. Nothing to do with Donald Trump, but everything to do with the fact that they're just not as resilient perhaps as former, financial manufacturing companies were. It's as simple as that, Paula. Mike, if the reason why our Labour government doesn't want to hold inquiries into the grooming gangs is that they are worried about the adverse reaction from its Muslim voters, then what does that say about the Muslims who live in this country? The claim that they all share our values and how diversity is our strength. Just imagine if this government had refused to hold an inquiry into white grooming gangs that were raping Pakistani children. Well, exactly right. Let's talk to James, who's in London, on grooming gangs. James, very good morning to you.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, good, sir. What can you tell me?
Oh, Mike, I feel like I'm in that British amusement park, the Twilight Zone, because we've had a British Prime Minister holding a cabinet meeting about a fictional drama on Netflix, and then had a push for it, then wanted a national debate for it, and then mentioned it in Prime Minister's Question Time, then had a go at Kenny Badnock because she hadn't watched it, while he is sweeping under the carpet what actually happened to thousands of working class kids.
Yeah.
You just couldn't write it, Mike.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, what is their problem? Well, we all know what their problem is. They don't want to upset the Muslim community.
Yeah, what do? We hand it back to the people. It's just like handing, fraudsters, having them do the audit.
Yeah, I know.
It's unbelievable, Mike.
Yeah, because the reason why the local councils can't do their own inquiries with any real truth is because they're infiltrated by people who are related to those who were in the grooming gangs, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and what advice has the civil servants given to Jess Phillips to kill this kill this inquiry? It's an absolute disgrace, Mike.
Well, that's it. I mean, she got up yesterday and said that following feedback, the government will adopt a different approach. Well, what feedback? I think we're entitled to know what feedback that is.
I think it's from pressure groups within the Home Office, Mike, that's done this. This is what they are spitting in our face and laughing at us.
Yeah. Absolutely right.
Absolute national disgrace, Mike.
Yeah.
National disgrace.
You're absolutely right, James. Thank you very much indeed. Stuart says this, Mike, as safeguarding minister, surely Jess Phillips should be screaming for an inquiry instead of cancelling one. Jess is only interested in safeguarding one female, and that's herself with her seat. I think it's pretty shameful, actually. It really is, because at the end of the day, surely the women who have been accused, who have been so wrongfully treated and badly and mistreated by these rape gangs, are the ones who deserve our sympathy and the ones who deserve a proper inquiry to be held and a proper inquiry to be done. Let's have another look at what Katie Lamb had to say about local leaders.
The girls we are talking about, Mr. Speaker, are predominantly white. The men who preyed on them were predominantly Muslim, generally either from Pakistan or of Pakistani heritage. One of the victims from Dewsbury was told by her rapist, I quote, "We're here to all the white girls and the government." Will the Minister accept that, in many cases, these crimes were racially and religiously aggravated? How, without a national inquiry, can we understand what part these factors played? Over 3 months since the government announced these local inquiries, Tom Crowther KC, a barrister invited by the Home Office to help establish them, knows almost nothing about their progress, and neither do we. Why is the framework for local inquiries now being led by ministers rather than by independent voices such as Tom Crowther? Why is the £5 million set aside for inquiries no longer being allocated but instead delivered on an opt-in basis? And what does the government intend to do about local leaders who say there is no need for an independent inquiry, like in Bradford or in Wales?
Katie Lamb there making the case for why this government should be absolutely and utterly ashamed of itself because it's not doing a proper inquiry into the rape gangs. They should be doing it. They ought to do it. They know they should do it, and yet they've cancelled the idea completely. We've got much more to do. Coming up, William Clouston will talk about this as well. Richard Tyson the next hour as well from Reform. Let's talk to Jolly, though, who's in Shrewsbury. He's got an idea for the theme park.
Hi, Mike.
How you doing, Jolly?
Not bad, mate. Thank you.
Good man. What can you tell me?
What about Angela's Safari? You travel a day to get this and told it you can't go on it and sent home.
I like it. Is it in Ethiopia?
Well, yeah, probably.
Yeah, absolutely right. Brilliant. Good stuff, Jolly. Thank you very much indeed. Here's one from Ian who says, hi, mate, loving the show. How about an NHS-themed ride? Nothing happens, you just stand in a queue and you can't leave it until you get a letter cancelling your appointment. That's Ian in Oldham. What about a seagull ride, says Treacle in Bridgend? You can buy fish and chips, then get attacked. This is great. The best of British, right? On the theme park, you can have Ed Davey windsurfing classes, says Mike Steve in West Sussex. And one from Mick in Wallington. You can have the police running a lucky dip flag stall. If you pick a Union Jack under his radio flag, you go to jail. But if you pick a Palestine flag, you get a free house. Fantastic. Megan can sell her jam, says Margaret, at the theme park. Honey, and don't forget the flower sprinkles. And Harry could be standing there waving. I mean, you know, absolutely, what a plank. It's incredible stuff, isn't it? I've got to talk to you about as well, before we head into the news, the Selly Oak rat. Because we've been talking about the bin strike in Birmingham, which has now reached its 4th month, believe it or not, and people are getting more and more cheesed off with the local council because the local council are trying, they say, to come around and sort of pick up as many of the black bin liners that they can. But we had a report in from Selly Oak yesterday where it was very, very clear that there was still plenty of rubbish on the streets and much, much more rubbish to come. And rats the size of cats, as we've been told, are still roaming the place. We'll be talking about that coming up in the next hour. The Labour government, meanwhile, have sort of deserted the unions. They've more or less said, look, you guys need to sort this out. But what they haven't done is found any kind of solution to it. So if you're living up there in Birmingham, I want to hear from you. I want to know how bad it is. I want to know what it's like in your street. I want to know when the last time somebody actually came to pick up your rubbish. That would be a story. This is Morning Glory. We've got much more to do. British theme park. Bring it on. We've just been talking in the office here about how many of us have been attacked at some point or other by some form of flying beast or any wildlife. I mean, so we'll take your stories this morning.
Hello, this story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino? Blimey.
Right? Yeah,
okay.
rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field. Put your foot down." This rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed at the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster?
One here from Dan in Hampshire. Morning, Mike. Is an Aussie that has been dive-bombed by our version of the Magpie, which is much bigger.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, this Sorry, I just keep reading more and more of your suggestions for the theme park. Welcome back to Morning Glory, by the way. 3 minutes past 8. William Clouston's here. Very good morning to you, William. We'll be talking to him about a great many things, including a trip he's just been on, and also about the tariffs. We'll catch up with that. We'll also talk about the grooming gangs and why this government has completely and utterly deserted the white working class girls who have been so terribly treated and so badly misrepresented by anyone in a Labour government, which says that they're all about looking after women and girls, safeguarding them, no doubt, but except not these particular women and girls, because they can't do it because they might upset some of their Muslim voters. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. The reason I was laughing was some of these that I'm reading out here. John in Maidstone says, Mike, what about a Reeves roller coaster where it goes down a black hole and never comes back out again? I mean, it's pretty brilliant. The Sadiq Khan ride, says Peter, where you pay more and more on each circuit. That sounds good. Let's get a voice note from Neil.
Hi mate, Neil from Wigan here. Great show as always. Maybe an idea for this new theme park. A world exclusive Big Dipper. You know, a short rise to the top. Over the edge you go, and then you go down, down, and down, and down.
It never comes back up. Absolutely brilliant. We'll also be talking about the striking bin men in Birmingham because Wes Streeting has now attacked them, in addition to Angela Rayner telling them to basically get back to work and to do a deal with the council, which is hardly what you'd expect from a Labour government, would you? I mean, after all, they're supposed to be the supporters of trade unions and rights of workers. Absolutely extraordinary. We've got a story about a coked-up ambulance driver who crashed his ambulance while he was on a 999 call, and the 3 people inside had to end up going to hospital. I mean, what is going on in Britain? 0344 499 1000. The Prime Minister wants to nationalise British Steel. I'm going to suggest that's a bad idea because of the nationalisation of the railways, a civil service made a massive gaffe, and it's now going to cost us another £250 million because they forgot about the fact that they might have to actually lease some trains to run on the railway. 0344 499 1000 is the number. It's coming up to 5 minutes past 8. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Good one here from Andrew, actually. He says, morning, Mike, just a question. The strike has lasted 4 months. How are these bin men paying their bills? Surely they aren't being paid while they're not working. That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Perhaps William Clouston does. William, very good morning to you.
Morning.
Very good to see you. You've been away, travelling on your travels, which we'll get to a little bit later on.
Yeah.
I guess we should kick off with the big story of the morning, which is the rape gangs, and what on earth this Labour government is doing to basically deny justice to so many young women who they say they want to protect and who they say they want to fight for. You know, they say they want to safeguard young women and girls, and yet here's an absolute opportunity to do it, and they've turned it down.
Well, they will, and I think it's because the whole episode cuts against their worldview. That's the reality. So all of these Labour MPs, they have a worldview based on oppressors and victims, right? And the oppressors are white people and the victims are various minorities. That's how they think, Mike. That's
so they can't actually see the reality.
They can't get the reality cuts up against that. It's so butts up against the whole worldview, and that's why their reaction is to resist it and pretend. They're actually pretending. I think the reality of what's happened is so bad that their reaction is just to sort of deny it themselves. They can't deal with it. It is, it must be the biggest race-based crime in post-war Europe. Probably.
It got to be.
Probably, on the numbers. It's horrific.
I mean, it's almost like the level, for me, only worse, of a terrorist attack.
It is, Cumulatively, it's discussed, and they... So, but things are changing a little bit. Obviously, Rupert Lowe has done a lot of good work on it. There was a brilliant little speech by Katie Lamb. I don't know if you saw that.
We've been playing it out all morning because I didn't know much about Katie Lamb until today, but she was magnificent.
Rising star. I shared
amazing.
As I say, I don't share a lot of Tories. One or two people that speak. If my view is if they say the right thing, and if we agree with them, we will share it and support them. But she deserved. It was a very brave speech.
We've actually, since you mentioned her, let's play a little quick clip of her. This is her talking about her how one victim was made to marry her abuser.
There is no question that the state has failed these children time and again. Take the case of Anna from Bradford. Vulnerable and in residential care, at the age of 14, she made repeated reports of rape and abuse to social workers who were responsible for her. But just the following year, aged 15, she married her abuser in a traditional Islamic wedding ceremony. Far from stepping in to stop it, her social worker was aghast. The authorities then arranged for her to be fostered by her abuser's parents. The ringleader of the Rochdale rape gang, Shabir Ahmed, was employed as a welfare rights officer by Oldham Council. And yet not one person, not one, has been convicted for covering up these institutionalised rapes.
Yeah, there you go.
It is extraordinary, isn't it?
And listen, this is such an emergency, and it's still going on. We're in touch with people in South Yorkshire, who helped, uncover this stuff, and they've told us that it's still going on, and they're sitting there like lemons and not doing it. I don't think, honestly, it's a disgrace. This won't change unless the public know about it, and we know about it, and we know the numbers, and then the people that are covering it up need to be prosecuted.
Yeah, totally. I mean, people need to be taken to task for this. It's not just about, explaining why people became victims or these young women are exploited. Yeah. It's about punishing the people that did it. Surely.
Absolutely, as a minimum. And but then their reaction to it. Look at the two reactions to two different things, Mike. Yeah. So BLM happens, George Floyd, and all the Labour Party jump on it and give it massive publicity. Yeah.
Despite the fact that he was a drug dealer,
despite
the fact that he'd once held a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach,
despite the fact that it's not even in this country, right? And they did it. So their reaction was to take the knee for it, take photographs, promote it, get on the bandwagon on that. And this is a thing which is in this country, and it's off the scale. Yeah. And they try and hash it up. So Tom Crowther, the barrister that they said they would help deal with it, he says he hasn't heard very much from them. Right. So basically all of their reaction is to try and cover it up. Yeah. Or to use cynical sort of news management. Oh, we'll promise this and then sort of row back from it.
And imagine sort of using that subject as a political PR. Yeah. It's shameful, really, isn't it?
It is shameful, yeah. No, I think they... and you have to worry. It's not, as I say, I think the fundamental thing is the liberal left system and diversity worldview. Their worldview butts up against what's happening. They just can't compute it. They just can't think this could happen. They don't think white people can be victims. Yeah. This is what some people might call it settler violence almost. Yeah. Absolutely disgusting. Can't deal with it. And that's one thing. But also the other thing, which again I hope isn't true, but is probably true, is that Labour's just worried about votes. Yeah. They're just worried about big blocks of votes.
And Jess Phillips, in particular, I think, should carry the can for a lot of this. Yeah. Here's a woman who claims that her sort of MO, if you like, is to protect women and girls. She's a safeguarder.
No, it's sick.
She's talking absolute cobblers.
I know, and they won't face up to something that's happening all the time.
No. I've got an amazing text here from Paul. He says, "Morning, Mike. I'm a retired police officer who worked on a rape gang inquiry in Scotland a number of years ago. This is a national epidemic," he says. "There were hundreds of young white girl victims, and the perpetrators were all Muslim men of various nationalities, Pakistani, Afghan, Somalian, Iraqi and many more. It was a shambles, and from my perspective a total cover-up from senior police to social workers and politicians. What was obvious was that these rapes and other abuses were not driven by sexual desires. These men controlled these girls and passed them around like property. A 2-year inquiry with 0 convictions, a scandal. I'm telling you, Mike, those in power do not want an inquiry. It's the biggest scandal in our history." I think he might be right.
I think he's right. No, it is the scale of it. It's
I didn't even know it happened in Scotland.
No, it's all over the country. Yeah. I mean, they're saying 45 towns and cities that we know about where there have been convictions and there have been cases. Yeah. But no, it literally is all over the place. And meanwhile, they pontificate about violence against women and girls and get on the platform with that and operate an open border. 400 people. Eritreans, the biggest group. This is a country where violence against women and and abuse of women is rife.
We had a call yesterday from a man in Leeds who said you wouldn't believe the number of Eritreans who have now moved into Leeds, who are all getting houses in sort of public housing opportunities. Yeah. People can't get a council flat because they're all being given to Eritreans. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, but it's a culture transplant. Yeah. This is what the reality is. I mean, doesn't want to. The Labour Party are quite happy to say diversity is strength, and all this, and all the slogans, simplistic slogans. They can't read. They're not facing the reality.
And we now know, don't we, that most of, if not all of the young men who come into this country by illegal boat crossings are either employed in sort of nefarious black market businesses like drug gangs or car washes, all of that. Hardly any of them end up being contributors to the economy. Most of them will end up on benefits in one way, shape or form.
And in many
what are we bringing them in for?
And because they just lack self-assertion and they've lost control.
People ask me a lot, William, and maybe you can answer this. Is there a concerted effort being made by this government to bring these people in for a purpose that we don't know? Doesn't make any economic sense.
No, it's absolutely crazy. No, I don't think that's true. I think the curse of the ruling class in this country, the political ruling class, is weakness. Yeah, they won't They are, I've said many times before, they're more worried about middle-class tea parties and what people think of them than getting a secure border.
Yeah.
We could get a secure border. Henry Bolton's come on board with the SDP, and I'm very excited about it. I speak to him, and he's an expert on it. He tells me, and he's right, that if we got a detention centre on Ascension Island, you build it, take 8 months, and you had a government that was committed to pulling out of the legal apparatus that protects this sort of thing, you could solve the problem. The flow on the migrant flow on the south coast could stop to nothing, virtually nothing. They don't want to do it, and the rhetoric continues. All this smash the gangs. This was nonsense. I listened to Starmer when he was saying that, and I thought, mate, you have no idea. You've left the incentives to come here and get benefits and have access to the welfare state they've never paid a penny into. You leave that incentive in, and the flow will just continue. And that's exactly what's happened. The flow now is bigger than it was before. So if you care about the safety of cities and the safety of towns, you cannot do that.
No, exactly right. Let's talk about tariffs, subjects you know an awful lot about. I don't talk about it a lot as a subject, only because I think most people don't really kind of understand global trade. They don't really. They sort of glaze over.
They do
when they hear about anything to do with percentages. But we're told this morning there's a big trade war going on between America and China. What's your take on it?
Well, I'll try and simplify it. Basically, America is the apex purchaser in the world. They buy goods from all over the world. Buy a lot of Chinese goods, hundreds of billions of Chinese goods and goods from around the world. But the problem for America, and Trump, I'm afraid, I don't agree with Trump on everything, but he's right about this. Trump and Vance are right about this. They cannot continue to buy more than they produce. And that's what they're doing every year. So I'll bring a number in. 1.2 trillion is the trade deficit they've got. And if you keep on running these deficits, you just get poorer each year. And what happens, if you look at the international debt position and creditor position in the United States over the last 34 years, the United States used to be a creditor nation. It used to own things. Now it just owes. It owes things, and it owes foreign interests own their assets, and they're in obviously a lot of the treasury market, and they're now a debtor nation, and it can't go on. The people, I've debated this with many free traders. If you think you can just continue down this road to beggary, then the biggest economy in the world, America, is just going to go pop one day. It's just going to go pop. They have to deal with it. They have to.
Particularly when dealing with places like China. I mean, I've said this to people as you have about who are all about free trade and being very properly liberal as opposed to the Liberal Democrats who are not liberal at all. Or the new liberals who are not liberal at all. The idea that you're a sort of you're an absolutist when it comes to there are no trade barriers anywhere. Well, that's fine if all countries are equal, but they're not.
They're not.
If you're dealing with a country that's actually employing slave labour to produce goods so cheaply that you can't compete with them.
You can't.
Then that damages your economy.
It does, and it's funny that when Trump announced the tariffs, one of the first people to praise him was Sean Fain, the leader of the United Auto Workers, and the United Auto Workers Union absolutely 100% behind the tariffs. Why? Because they have plants all over in Tennessee and Michigan, obviously, and other places that are under that are under capacity. And that could be expanded. So if you want to deal with the trade gap, you've got to put some protection in, I'm afraid. And he's quite right about the point about free trade. Everyone loves free trade if it's really free, but the idea that you have global free trade is actually quite utopian. It doesn't really exist. You get China, a lot of other countries put in non-tariff barriers and don't pay their workers as much as an American worker would. And if I were a member of that union in America, I'd want tariffs.
Well, exactly right. I mean, I was using the example that I know from my own experience of living in America, that, how is it possible that you can buy a British car in America or a European car in America for less money than you can buy it here?
Crazy.
It's because of the way that they do their pricing. Because, you can buy, say, a Mercedes that would cost you $30,000 here, you can pay $20,000 for it.
Yeah, there's probably less tax on it as well, sales tax. But and then you get the reaction, obviously, the EU's reaction and Starmer's reaction. I mean, Britain, I think the 10% tariff that Trump... It is a problem. 25% on British cars is an issue. But 10% generally is not something I'm too concerned about. Why? Because the rate of exchange between the dollar and the pound fluctuates quite wildly. The last 4 years, 4 years, it's the 27% peak-to-trough difference. That's far bigger than the tariff. So the exporters will deal with it. And then
also, Georgia Maloney said something interesting this week, where she said, actually, the net zero demands that are being being made on European countries by the European Parliament and by the EU are actually like a tariff.
Oh, they're far bigger.
It means that they're actually worse than tariffs. Because it's costing countries money to put, you know, these ridiculous kind of levies on energy.
Yeah, and then you get a stupid government like one we've got now with Miliband. And Miliband won't let us extract and drill for our own gas and our own oil.
Right.
Biggest export from the United States to Britain, crude oil.
Yeah.
And again, you're in a bind, Mike. Because what are we going to do? We're going to put a tariff on
oil. Are you?
Yeah, you make it more expensive.
Would you?
It's nuts.
Yeah.
So I think Europe's in a bind with this. I'll say it now. It's going to be quite messy, but the United States have to do this.
Yeah.
They have to redress this trade balance. And I'll say this now. If you're a surplus country like the EU, or EU's not a country, but if you're a surplus bloc like the EU or like China, you cannot win a trade war against America. America will win this. If Trump holds out, America will win this trade war.
And it looks as though that will happen.
Yeah.
Some people are worried about the markets going up and down, but in the end of the day, the markets are down again today. The FTSE down 2.4%. You know, but I've been talking to a lot of financial advisors over the last couple of days, and they're all saying, you know, for a lot of people, there's an opportunity to buy. Well, because the prices have come down, and people get nervous because they think their pensions are losing money, but they'll come back.
They will, and the fundamental value. The people that own these shares own shares in companies, and the companies will perform as they perform. But something like the S&P 500 with the big 7 tech companies, that was massively overvalued.
Yeah.
And honestly,
well, the tech companies are where you don't want to be.
You don't want to be. No, it's massively overvalued, and it's an iron law of economics. If something's overvalued, in the end, it will correct. So I'm not worried about that correction. That's probably beneficial. It's going to happen anyway.
Yeah. I had Bob Seeley in here the other day, and he said the house prices will fall. Everything. I said, well, good. If house prices fall in this country, they should, because they're too bloody expensive.
Might give a few young families a chance to start.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
exactly right.
I know,
Let's talk about your travels, because you were in some interesting parts of the world recently, which many of us don't get to go to.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, I've got family in South Korea and Australia, and so I don't often take a very big trip away, but I loaded the system with.
Some people might say, "Why did you come back?"
No, exactly. No, it's very important. No, the other thing is, it's very important. I think it's important to get off the roller coaster sometimes and actually get a bit of perspective. So South Korea was very interesting. Stayed in a temple, where one of my family members was raised, and it was very interesting. And in Seoul, they had all those massive protests. They're very worried about Chinese influence in Korean politics. So a lot of CCP out chants and all this sort of thing. It's an incredible country, South Korea. It's quite American.
And economically still successful?
Oh yeah, I mean, their manufacturing is very strong. I think they are. I think the biggest problem they have, Mike, in South Korea is the birth rate. So their total fertility rate's down at sort of 0.7. Wow. Well below replacement rate. And the thing is, it proves a point, really. The Korean government over the years has spent about $500 billion promoting births and promoting pro-family, and actually it's cultural. It doesn't. None of that has really made much of a difference. And then it was nice to get back down to Australia. We were married in Australia. Used to live there for a while. I got a block of time because I was seeing a lot of people, and I had a block of time of about the best part of a week, just to do a very long car journey. I drove from Brisbane down to Melbourne through the Tablelands.
That is a long way. What, through the middle?
Yeah, no, we're through sort of New England. Around the outside, as far as Forbes and Armadale and all these places. And it was just fantastic. And I could say hinterland Australia in these areas is doing very well. I think it's a lovely.
And have they got a handle on their immigration now, would you say?
Oh yeah, no. Australia has, as a Western country, is one of the best places in terms of immigration. Why? Because they control it. I think it is too high, but they get a lot of very high-skilled migration from APAC, from their region, really. And at least they're in control of it, Mike. And the people that, it's beneficial. It's not low skill, and it's not people just breaking into your country.
Right.
John Howard stopped the breaking into to Australia. When he won an election on it, he said, we will decide who comes to this country under what circumstances.
Exactly.
Won the election, and they've got a system. If you arrive unsolicited, you end up in Papua New Guinea.
And that's what Americans say as well now. America's saying, we decide if we give you a visa to come here to study at university, and you decide to wreak havoc and start terrorising people because you support, Palestine, we're going to kick you out.
Basic democracy, Mike. Basic democracy. No, it was lovely to get back, and I've had a few days in Singapore on the way back. So it was good. So I'm, recharged and ready to go.
Recharged. You look very healthy. You look as if you've had a good rest. Great to see you. William Clouston there, talking great deal of sense. Katie Lamb says Shane in Sutton. Sutton Valence is my MP. Having met her in the run-up to the last general election, you could be looking at a future party leader if all the pieces fall into place. Interesting. Yeah, I think I was very impressed with what she said. Let's get a voice note from Darren on the British theme park.
Good morning, Mike. It's Darren from Carmarthen. Hope you're well. I'm just on the way to the Labour theme park, Mike. Very much looking forward to having a turn on the Welfare State Water Rapids, Mike. The Welfare State Water Rapids is all about jumping on the boat, having a little cruise down the river there, and collecting as much money off the trees as you can possibly grab hold of and sticking it up your jumper, Mike. So hopefully I'll be collecting a large sum of money from the Welfare State to Water Rapids, Mike. Have a good day.
Brilliant. Darren's always brilliant. I mean, this is so good. I just one of the most enjoyable shows I think I've ever done, because it now gives me the thought of a lazy, the lazy river that you lie in. You can just have all the benefits claimants in the lazy river just going round and round and round, getting given free food, free drinks. Absolutely fantastic. Amazing. William, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Coming up, we've got Jack Elsom, Chief Political Correspondent of The Sun, because a big piece in there about the Trump trade battle with China. We'll get to the bottom of that. This is Talk.
And what I'm thinking is they're thinking how they're going to help them get a nuclear capability so the regime can survive, because it's on very dodgy ground at the moment. So you've got a succession crisis coming up for the Ayatollah Khomeini, who's almost on his last legs. You've got all sorts of infighting going on, and basically 70% of the population on under $3 a day. So it's a real tinderbox that Russia and China are trying to keep together. Now, President Trump, everybody calls him for a fool.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, 8:27, very nearly. Lots more to do between now and 10 o'clock, but Julie Hartley-Brewer will be along, of course. Let's get a voice note from Adrian.
Hi, Mike. It's Adrian from Heathfield, and great show as always. With regard to the grooming gang scandal, are we surprised that a government have buried it again? Whether it's Labour or Conservative, doesn't matter. It's going to make a lot of people in power look very, very complicit. So there's absolutely no way they are going to do anything about it. They don't really care about all these young girls, and the fact it's a particular demographic has a problem for them too, whether they're Conservative or Labour.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right. Absolutely. Adrian, thank you very much indeed. Lots more of you have got things to say about theme parks. Andy in Rugby says, theme park idea, the Rachel Reeves amusement arcade where the one-armed bandit machine robs you before you even put your money in the slot. Great show as always. Mark from Norfolk says, Mike, a very funny show today. How about the Kevin O'Sullivan Man of the People ride, which ends up at the Ivy, where he can enjoy his £40 fish and chips with a glass of champagne? Yeah, very good. Absolutely, Man of the People. And the British theme park, how about the amazing Starmer Maze, full of dead ends, U-turns and fences to sit on, says Neil. Brilliant. Let's talk to Jack Elsom, Chief Political Correspondent of The Sun. Jack, you guys have got a big piece of The Sun today about this theme park. We've been having a lot of fun with people suggesting things that you could do in it. How about this from Stephen Poole? Kids on e-bikes and scooters let loose amongst the crowds to see how many phones they can blag. You know, absolutely incredible. I mean, it's just go. I mean, it goes on and on, this story. But actually, I mean, in fairness to Starmer, which I don't say very often, if it does become a £28,000, 28,000 job opportunity, and £60 billion coming into the economy, it's the first decent thing the Labour Party's done, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, morning, Mike. Totally. I mean, the Labour government are desperately scrambling around for growth wherever they can find it. And if they find a massive £50 billion injection via a universal theme park, then I think hats off to them. They haven't managed to drive growth anywhere else, really. Obviously, businesses have been suffocated by a massive tax bombshell. And so if Universal want to put their hands in their pocket and put one of the continent's largest theme parks in the middle of Bedford, then so be it. I think it'd be fantastic for the local area. I think they're expecting about 8.5 million visitors in the first year. So, yeah, I think fair play. It seems like a good idea.
I mean, I imagine, like a lot of these things, it's quite a few years off. But I mean, if they are going to start sort of, digging the foundations, as it were, as opposed to fixing the foundations, they'll be starting pretty soon, presumably.
Yeah, I think it's meant to open in 2031. So about 6 years' time, I think we can expect the first rides to go off. But yeah, I mean, Universal seem very serious about it. Obviously, they have theme parks all over the world, but this will be the first one that they build in Europe. And I'm not sure many people expected Bedford to be the location of it, but it'd be great for that local area and great for the rest of the country. And if it drives economic growth, which we're in badly need of at the moment, then all for the better.
Another suggestion I've had from Cliff is, how about you could call it left of centre parks?
Very good, very good. Tell him if he wants a job at The Sun writing headlines, then get in touch.
I'll tell him, absolutely right. Let's talk about your page 10 today, written by Michael Clark, defence expert, all about the Trump sort of trade war with President Xi in China. We just had William Clouston on from the Social Democrat Party, who's a bit of an international trade expert. He reckons that America will win this war.
Well, it almost certainly will, but it doesn't mean that it won't harm the American economy and potentially the world economy in the process. I mean, if you just look at the numbers, the American economy is worth about $30 trillion.
Yeah.
And China is worth about $19 trillion.
Yeah.
And then the third biggest economy is Germany, and that's worth about $4 trillion. So it just goes to show the scale, I think, of these two economic superpowers butting heads in this way. But the point which I think Michael Clark makes in his piece is that a byproduct of this trade war could actually be geopolitical tensions. We know that China is eyeing Taiwan. And obviously, if they do make a move on Taiwan, the sort of island near to them, which they've been had in their sights for a long time now, there is no way which any Western power is going to go to war with China over an island like Taiwan. But what we did have, I think, was economic leverage. China is heavily reliant on exports, especially to the United States, to prop up their economy. And if they are now locked in a trade war with America and they don't have that card to play that they could, impose sanctions or even more tariffs, then they might make a move for it. And then you have, obviously, China getting its claws into lots of other countries with the Belt and Road Initiative, places in Africa also being hit by lots of Trump's tariffs. They might think, well, sod it, actually, we're not going to do business with America anymore. And actually, all this Chinese cash looks quite appealing.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, I guess the problem for China will be if they can't sell their goods as cheaply as they used to sell them, that could be a permanent problem for them, because if tariffs even are sort of allowed to be removed from China, at the moment they're going to stand at 104%, I think. I wonder how much of an effect that has on their economy and whether it slows down their ability to make cars, slows down their ability to make many of the goods that they're currently selling to us.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, China has had rip-roaring growth in the past few decades because they have managed to very successfully manufacture cheap goods and then export them to Western countries, especially the United States. And if that supply chain breaks because they now have to pay incredible import levies at American companies to import Chinese goods, then it's going to really, really harm the Chinese economy. And while we talk about these two countries as two economic superpowers of the world, America is far, far bigger, and it can definitely afford to take more of a hit than China. And so I think William's right. Obviously, you can't compete with America in a trade war. It doesn't mean to say that it might not harm American consumers as well. People who suddenly find that they've been enjoying cheap Chinese goods for years, and suddenly they're now double the price.
And where does that all leave our Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who's desperately trying not to upset Donald Trump on the one hand, but also wants to try and get a decent deal and maybe reduce the 10% and certainly the 25% on cars back down to zero?
Well, I think what this Chinese row has shown is that Donald Trump is very serious about when he means that if you retaliate to us, then we're going to retaliate straight back to you.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that there's any prospect whatsoever of Keir Starmer imposing retaliatory tariffs, no matter how much he might threaten it. He wants to get this economic prosperity deal over the line. He seems to have pinned all his hopes on it. We understand it's actually sitting on Donald Trump's desk. But we heard yesterday from the US trade representative that Donald Trump, at the moment anyway, is not in any position to be doing deals whatsoever. He wants to stick with the tariffs he's got. Maybe later down the line we can get some sort of deal across. It probably won't completely negate tariffs. It might reduce the 10% base we have at the moment. But I think that, you know, he came out a couple of days ago with a big announcement on electric vehicles and how he's going to sort of scrap the fine for each vehicle over the mandate from £15,000 to £12,000. But the problem is that a lot of people in this country just don't want to buy electric vehicles at the moment because there's no infrastructure and there's no appetite for them. So, yeah, the car manufacturing industry is going to take a massive blow to this. But you're right, he seems to be carrying on with this softly approach. If we can get a deal, then fantastic. But at the moment, it doesn't look too likely in the short term.
No, sure. Jack Helpson, great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed, Jack, from The Sun there, talking about the piece on page 10 of The Sun this morning, why the Trump versus Xi trade war will make the world a scarier place, is what it says by Michael Clark there. Let's get a voice note from Debs.
Morning, Mike. Debs from Lincolnshire here. I've just told my husband, who's a major in the Royal Army Medical Services, British Army, that councils, or certain councils, are considering cancelling VE Day celebrations because it's elite. Do you think the boys that went to the front line and landed on the beaches saw themselves as elite? I don't think so. What is wrong with this country changing its history or trying to erase it? We should be paying respect to the people that gave their today for our tomorrow.
Exactly right, Debs. Couldn't agree with you more. This is this place up in Hemel Hempstead where they're ridiculously cancelling the VE Day celebrations because they're about elitism. Absolutely utter nonsense. Leon says, morning, Mike. Great show as usual. Not sure we'll be able to go to the theme park as all the Labour MPs will have been given all the tickets. If we do get to go, do we get a free stab vest on entry? Keep up the good work. And one from Mick who says, Mike, yeah, you could have the HS2 ride, which still isn't built yet. That's true. And what about this from Richard? How about the House of Horrors, which is just an NHS corridor? You can just stand around in it or lie down in it and wait for somebody to come and help you. Absolutely right. 8:36. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. Richard Tice is going to be joining us soon, Deputy Leader of Reform. Also, loads and loads of you get in touch about the theme park idea. It's absolutely extraordinary. Gordon says this, Mike, will the new theme park be powered by GB Energy? This will involve Jurgen on the back lot pedalling a stationary bike hooked up to a generator. Brilliant. And Mike, somebody else has gone, come on, the theme park's already been shut down for being racist. Right, OK. What about the smuggling gung ride, Mike? The car is shaped like a sausage. It changes track so quickly you get off confused as to why you got on it in the first place. And one for Jules says, queuing rules for theme park, fast track lane for those who have arrived via the channel without passports, or those here who have overextended their visa stay, normal queue for British citizens. Absolutely right. A serious breaking news story, by the way. The A1 in England has been closed in both directions after 4 police cars were involved in a serious crash. The key route will now be shut for several hours, is what they're saying, and it's closed between the junction 73 and junction 75. I think that's fairly far north between Swalwell, is it, and Denton, after a multi-vehicle smash just before 2:30 in the morning this morning. So we'll bring you more details on that as we get them. But basically, it's a major motorway, the A1, which is, I don't know if it's the A1M, but it looks absolutely terrible up there. One police car a few metres ahead appears to have suffered the worst damage, with the roof partially torn off. Debris and shattered glass remain strewn around the motorway following the horror. Northumbria police are on the scene. So it's up north, up there on the northeast corner of the A1. Major delays expected this morning during rush hour as motorists navigate the fallout. You can expect to be stuck in delays of up to 45 minutes, according to National Highways, is what it says here. Lots of you have been getting in touch about the British theme park, of course, and we'll be developing that as we go. But let's remind ourselves of what happened in the first hour of the show, because we were talking about what's going on with the Birmingham bid strike, where Streeting came out today, or came out yesterday, I should say, and basically had a go at the unions, which is a pretty unusual thing for the Labour government to do. And he said that they need to knock their heads together and come up with a solution. But yesterday, something really, really unusual happened, and it was a Selly Oak rat. This is a man, obviously dressed up as a rat, who decided to take on the whole idea and go and visit the council.
I'm looking forward to going around, eating rubbish wherever I can see. I'm a Selly Oak rat, so in Selly Oak all the students litter all their rubbish and it doesn't get collected, and I'm very, very happy to be going around, eating their food, having lots and lots of babies with my wife, and really increasing the rat population in Birmingham. By what date does the council think it will have reduced the backlog, reduced the rat population, and returned our streets to an acceptable state?
Councillor Mohammed, I didn't to reply.
I mean, only in Britain would you get a bloke dressed as a rat actually opportuning himself in front of the council there in Birmingham and asking a question, which is then answered. Because in most countries, the guy would probably be dragged away and beaten to within an inch of his life by the local cops. But in this country, what actually happens is that not only does he get to ask a question, but the question actually gets answered. Incredible. Absolutely extraordinary. And that, I think, is what makes us still one of the best countries to live in. Kenny from Edinburgh says a new roller coaster at the British Universal theme park should be called the Gravy Train, with only government ministers allowed to jump on it. And will the theme park be British themed, says Stork, or will it be no alcohol sold on site, a halal food court, and a helter-skelter that shuts down 3 times a day for prayers? It's just incredible. So many great ideas coming in. Keep them coming. 0344 499 1000 is the number for a voice note, or if you want to call us, 87222 is of course the text line if you want to send your message to start it with the word talk. You can find us on X as well, at talkTV. Let's get a voice note from Sarah.
Morning, Mike. It's Sarah from Croydon. I think we should have the Sadiq Khan roller coaster ride, where you're charged a toll for every bridge or every loop that you go over. You're also charged pay per mile. But the ride has to close at 6 p.m. because you're not allowed to go out and have fun after dark. Many thanks, Mike. Loving the show this morning.
Sarah, absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. The Sadiq Khan ride. Yeah, I mean, there's a penalty, presumably, if you take longer than you're supposed to go round as well, because that would be the way it would go. 0344 499 1000. Coming up, Richard Tice is here. He's got plenty to say about what's going on with the rape gang scenario, why Labour have decided not to have a national investigation and a national inquiry into it. Jess Phillips, I think, might have to make herself plank of the week for absolutely and utterly letting down women and girls, young women and girls, who British Labour say that they're here to protect. Hard to believe that this is what they've come up with, and they did it in such a cynical fashion on the last day of term, effectively, before the Easter recess, because the Easter recess has now happened. It's 8:44.
You've had Trump yesterday that's basically said that in retaliation to China's retaliation, he's going to put this extra 50% tariff on Chinese goods that are already tariffs, which means that the taxes that the US consumer, US businesses will have to pay on imports from China in some cases is going to be over 100%.
Yeah.
So basically we're in this huge escalation of the trade war, certainly between China and America, but in a sort of more promising sign, it looks like Britain at least is not going to join.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:47. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Of course, coming up in the next hour, we'll be talking to Kevin Hollinrake, Shadow Local Government Secretary. He's down on College Green for us. Also, Neil Gallagher, not that one. He's going to be speaking from the Technical and Compliance British Pest Control Association department. We're going to be talking about Birmingham and talking about the rats and what's going on up there. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. Also, the NHS. Because yesterday, because we didn't really get to this story yesterday properly, and we sort of didn't get to it today, really, because we're doing so much on this British theme park and the Pakistani rape gangs. Martin Gower's going to join us. The NHS apparently has hired 1,500 doctors in the past sort of 3 or 4 months, according to Wes Streeting, according to the government. I'm not sure I buy it, but let's see. Richard Tice is here, though, Deputy Leader of Reform UK. Richard, very good morning to you.
Well, a very good morning to you, Mike. There's a lot going on. I'm just back yesterday from Scunthorpe, where Nigel and I were at the steelworks urging the government. There were literally 3 days to save British Steel from the closure of the blast furnaces. And We met lots of workers. I went to the blast furnace. It's a critical piece of our national infrastructure. We've got to take it into public ownership, invest in it long term with some top quality management. I know you have concerns about that, but if you get the right management, Mike, and I'm meeting some global experts, then actually we can turn this negative into a huge positive. And that's what we're recommending on behalf of the country.
Well, funny enough, you and The Guardian are in complete agreement, which is probably fairly unusual for you, Richard. Well, The Guardian is saying that there's an overwhelming case to nationalise it.
Well, it shows that occasionally, just very occasionally, The Guardian can listen to some common sense.
Yeah, I mean, the worry is, though, don't put those civil servants who were in charge of the railway nationalisation in charge of the steel nationalisations. I don't know if you've seen a story in the Telegraph this morning in which it says because of and they call it a negotiating error, they are going to cost the taxpayers an extra 250 million quid because they forgot when they were talking about nationalising Great Western Railway that it actually needs some trains.
And that's the key point. That's why you need top quality management. That's why I'm meeting global experts I've been speaking to over recent days. We've been formulating a plan that actually you could bring it together with the redundant electric arc furnaces owned by the financially constrained business in Rotherham, bring that together, create a bigger business. But sure, you need good management and long-term thinking. So, we would know how to turn it into a win-win, and that's what we're challenging the Labour government to do.
Yeah, I mean, this morning we're talking about another job opportunity. I mean, we've been having some fun with it, this British theme park, which, on the face of it, actually, if it happens, is a great idea, I think. It's supposedly going to create 28,000 jobs, and it's going to put £60 billion into the coffers of the United Kingdom PLC. But, there was also supposed to be one of these theme parks built in Kent some years ago, and it's just been wound up now. Nothing's ever happened.
Oh, but I think we are tempted by the opportunity to create a wonderful rocket to launch Mayor Sadiq Khan into space. And obviously it would be a single ticket. It would not be a return ticket.
Yes, absolutely right. I mean, we've had some fantastic suggestions here. Here's one from Robert in Hitchin. So how about the Heathrow experience, a limited edition ride before it shuts down completely?
Well, we'd have to make sure there's plenty of power. I actually know the site because I used to live quite nearby. Right. And look, I think it is a huge, huge opportunity. But the question is, they've actually got to turn the goodwill of the plans into reality, and that means sensible planning regulations. And the problem in this country is that our regulations, our taxes, and the cost of energy is all too high. And I know a lot of people are concerned about the tariffs from the US president, but the biggest tariff we've got here, Mike, and it's why British Steel's in trouble and many other businesses like the car industry, our biggest tariff is net zero.
Yeah,
net
absolutely.
Zero. That's the biggest single tariff on the United Kingdom. It's self-imposed, and we've got to scrap it. We've got to just remove it in its entirety.
Yeah. And also you've got another ally in Georgia Maloney, because she came out and said exactly that yesterday, that the net zero levies that are being placed on countries in Europe by the EU are worse than tariffs. They're putting prices up more than they should ever be.
Well, isn't it funny that the economies that are struggling the most, whether it's the UK or continental Europe, are the ones that are ever more obsessed with net stupid zero? And that three-word slogan, you've got to just put the word stupid in there. It's catching on. People are talking about it on the doorsteps up and down the country. So we are going to keep pushing that message. We can grow this economy. We can make people better off. But to do that, you've got to scrap net stupid zero, and that will lower the bills, reduce the cost of living.
Yeah. I mean, just to go back to the theme park idea, Barry has sent me this, who said in 2012 the government announced the construction of a 3.5 billion 500-acre site for a theme park in Swanscombe in Kent. You might remember that. And that project was wound up 2 months ago. That's the one that's not going ahead. So I guess you'd have to keep the pressure on.
We'll absolutely have to keep the pressure on, and that, of course, is what we will do. I mean, there's just so much sort of madness around at the moment. And as we saw, whilst I was in Scunthorpe, we saw in the House of Commons Jess Phillips basically cowardly reneging on the promise to have local inquiries into the child rape gangs. Absolutely despicable behaviour in the last few minutes of the parliamentary term before recess. Yeah. And I actually, like you, I congratulate the Conservative Shadow Minister, Katie Lamb, in her response on this. Yeah. We've been very, very strong on this. The challenge, if you have your own independent inquiry, which we've talked about, is that you haven't got statutory powers, and that's why everybody had been urging the government to have a national inquiry. The other thing that needs to be looked at, because obviously inquiries take a very long time, one thing that we're looking at is whether an alternative would be to have a judicial review into the process. That's something we're looking at. But we've got to keep pushing on this. It's not acceptable. You have to ask why they're not doing what they promised to do back in January when the Home Secretary stood in the House of Commons and promised us these local inquiries. You have to ask, what have they got to hide? Who are they protecting? Why is this happening?
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's have a quick look at what Jess Phillips actually said yesterday.
We are developing a new best practice framework to support local authorities which want to undertake victim-centred local inquiries or related work. Drawing on the lessons from local independent inquiries like Telford, Rotherham and Greater Manchester, we will publish the details next month. Alongside this, we will set out the process through which local authorities can access the £5 million national fund to support locally led work on grooming gangs. Following feedback from local authorities, the fund will adopt a flexible approach to support both full independent local inquiries and more bespoke work, including local victims panels or locally led audits into the handling of historic cases.
I mean, it's pretty galling, isn't it, for somebody like Jess Phillips, who purports herself to be, a great champion of the rights of women and girls, particularly when it comes to safeguarding them, and yet she was the one chosen to make this announcement.
It's more than galling. It's cynical. It's outrageous, actually. And what your clip there didn't show, there was almost nobody in the chamber. Yeah. Because MPs have been given no notice about this really important statement. And frankly, it should have come from the Home Secretary. And to do that just before Parliament shuts up for a couple of weeks, I just think is reprehensible. Yeah. And we will do everything we can, along with the other opposition parties, I'm sure, to try and keep the pressure up on the government. We must not stop here. We've got to keep pushing.
Yeah. And you mentioned it's difficult to do an independent inquiry because it doesn't have statutory powers. You can't compel people to appear and all of that. I mean, a lot of people say to me, well, Rupert Lowe's raised £500,000 rather, to do an inquiry. But it's not clear yet really what that will mean and how that will work.
That's the issue, because you then rely on a lot of goodwill. And, of course, those who've got things to hide or cover up, they're not going to come to such an inquiry. We know that's the challenge of it. That's why we've got to look at other options, possibility of a judicial review, things that can happen much faster. So we've just got to keep pushing on this. Absolutely.
And what's your take on the tariff row that's going on at the moment? I mean, Keir Starmer's desperately trying not to fall out with Donald Trump. He keeps saying they're in a negotiating position. Trump clearly wants to negotiate with any country that will negotiate with him, maybe apart from China. But you're a commercial man. You know about the markets. You know about how the government and the economy works. Are you concerned about the economy at this point?
My concerns about the economy has got nothing to do with the tariffs. It's because of the terrible blunder budget that Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, imposed on us last October. This is the week when national insurance contributions are going up. That's what's destroying our economy. That's what's meaning that employers are not hiring people. They're getting rid of people. So the reason our economy is flat on its back and heading south, that was already happening. That's all because of the highest taxes, the highest wasteful government spending we've seen in 70 years, started by the Tories, being accelerated by the Labour Party. That's the real challenge, as well as overlay that with obviously net stupid zero, uncontrolled, low-skilled, mass immigration, and these are the challenges that the country faces. And with regard to tariffs, actually, I think the Prime Minister is adopting the right response by staying calm. And isn't it wonderful to see him make advantage of the Brexit opportunity, Mike?
Well, exactly right. And he's even worked out.
Let's negotiate a partial free trade deal and keep talking. We can talk about buying US defence goods and the like. Those are the things that we've got to focus on, as opposed to the sort of retaliation measures proposed by the European Union or China.
He's even worked out the OBR might not be up to much.
Well, I've been calling them the Office for Incompetent Forecasting for some time. Maybe once again, the Labour Party seem to be listening to reform and starting to copy us.
Well, you never know. And what they're not listening to is Lord Sugar. Have a look at this.
It's strange that someone like Keir Starmer has never approached me. I've never met him or spoken to him. Not for me to join back to the Labour Party, but just to use someone like me to come up with some solutions for him. So I don't know who his advisors are internally. It could be me, Richard Branson, or Peter Jones, or someone like that. And I'm just saying is that the people that he has in his government don't know anything about business, and I'm not sure who's advising him.
I'm not sure he's making an application for a job there, but many people would say that he could do with some advice on business, couldn't he, Keir Starmer?
Absolutely, because there's, as you rightly says, there's not a single person in the cabinet with any real business experience, and that's why they've been making such terrible decisions that have been so damaging, and that essentially is destroying what growth we had in the economy. So we need radical reform. Otherwise, we're going to continue to get poorer per person, per family, per community every week and every month, and that's the drum that we keep banging. And that's why I think you're seeing we're leading or first equal in the polls week in, week out.
Richard Tice, very good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Richard Tice, MP, the Deputy Leader of Reform, of course. Ali says, what's the point of opening a British theme park in 6 years' time? After 4 more years of Labour government and Ed Millipede's net stupid zero, no one will have any money to spend in the theme park, and we won't have enough electricity to power the rides. One here from Julian, who says, Mike, Jules in Hitchin here, an idea for the Starmer theme park. How about the health and safety roller coaster? Maximum speed 20 miles an hour, a sleeping policeman every 15 metres, a pedestrian crossing at 25-metre intervals with English Channel dinghy passengers ready to clean your windscreen, and a pothole simulator section. Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. So many great ideas coming in. And one here from John, who says, I hope they're going to build enough toilets, Mike, for the ever-increasing genders we're discovering, and a large number of litter trays for those identifying as cats. Says it all, really, doesn't it? This is Morning Glory. More coming up after the news. We've just been talking in the office here about how many of us have been attacked at some point or other by some form of flying beast or any wildlife. I mean, so we'll take your stories this morning.
Hello, this story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino? Blimey.
Right? Yeah,
okay.
rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like someone out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, believe it, Dad, just put your foot down, Dad, we're in a field. Put your foot down, this rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich, don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster?
One here from Dan in Hampshire. Morning, Mike. As an Aussie that has been dive-bombed by our version of the Magpie, which is much bigger, every spring...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to the very nearly 4 minutes past 9. I'm Mike Graham. We are in the final hour of the show. It's looking a little bit hazier out there today, but it was nice yesterday. Beautiful, warm, sunny weather. We're going to be reaching up to the 20s, apparently, according to some newspaper reports this morning, in the coming days. It's going to be a lovely, lovely spring. We can be very thankful for it. Kevin Hollenberg, MP, coming up, the Shadow Local Government Secretary. He'll have plenty to say, I'm sure, about all the stories we've been talking about this morning. We're also going to explore this idea that somehow Labour has found 1,500 doctors to somehow come and work as GPs. I don't know what they've all been doing. Maybe they've been working as locums, part-time doctors. Maybe they've been working in pubs. I don't know what they've been doing. But have your GP experiences suddenly changed? A couple of people yesterday said they'd actually had some pretty good experiences with their GPs, but an awful lot of other people, I'm afraid, have not. So we'll find out what all that is about. Also coming up, we're going to be talking to many of you about all the other big stories. We've been talking this morning about a new theme park which is going to be built. The Universal Studios apparently going to build in Bedfordshire, which of course is not far from Luton and Luton Airport. Maybe that's why they're expanding Luton Airport, because maybe people are going to come in and work in it. We've been asking many of you to give us some ideas for theme parks, and Alison in South Wales says in the new theme park at 5 p.m. every day they could have the PIP parade, all the people driving their brand new Motability cars. That's a good one. How about the Rachel Reeves ride, says Terry in Birmingham. You go round and round and vanish up your own deficit. Keep going. Great as ever. Yeah, absolutely right. Incredible stuff, isn't it? Also, we've been talking about the Grooming gang's decision, which was rather sneakily kind of stuck in at the very last minute to the final day of the House of Commons last sitting, just before the Easter recess was yesterday, and shortly before the close of play. It's about 40 minutes left. Jess Phillips suddenly got up as the one of the ministers in the Home Office and basically said that she was going to do away with the idea of Labour having any kind of national grooming gang inquiry. An absolute shambles, an absolute disgrace, and really, really poor from supposedly someone who stands up for young women and girls, safeguarding them from all kinds of domestic violence. Why she doesn't want to protect these particular women and girls is a mystery to me. 0344 499 1000. Also, Keir Starmer has attacked the OBR and said that it doesn't really work properly. We've got an incredible story about a coked-up ambulance driver who's been spared jail after he crashed his ambulance on a 999 call because he'd taken too many Class A drugs and injured the 3 people that he was carrying in the ambulance, 2 of whom originally weren't, of course, injured. Only the one they were actually travelling with. So, I mean, absolutely unbelievable what's going on in the NHS. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. David says, this morning, Mike, listening as usual, I've just heard your piece on the grooming gangs and Jess Phillips' common statement, an absolute disgrace. Her Majesty's government, His Majesty's government, knows full well that local authorities have neither the cash, experience, expertise or time to investigate or instigate gang inquiries. And, of course, the fact that in some areas and some cases the inquiry will probably uncover criminality that is very close to home. Well, that's why, in my view, you needed a national inquiry. And Alexa says, I've read the transcript of Katie Lamb's speech. The unimaginable gross acts committed against children are horrific. Those who perpetrated these crimes and all officials who turned a blind eye, no matter their position, should be standing in the dock with the perpetrators. Only then can justice be delivered. Yeah, Katie Lamb, a previously unknown star to me, has really, really gone up in everybody's estimation. Let's have a listen to what she had to say yesterday in Parliament.
There is no question that the state has failed these children time and again. Take the case of Anna from Bradford. Vulnerable and in residential care, at the age of 14, she made repeated reports of rape and abuse to social workers who were responsible for her. But just the following year, aged 15, she married her abuser in a traditional Islamic wedding ceremony. Far from stepping in to stop it, her social worker was aghast. The authorities then arranged for her to be fostered by her abuser's parents. The ringleader of the Rochdale rape gang, Shabir Ahmed, was employed as a welfare rights officer by Oldham Council. And yet not one person, not one, has been convicted for covering up these institutionalised rapes.
It's quite an extraordinary story, quite an extraordinary revelation from Labour that they're just not going to bother doing anything about it. Let's talk to Kevin Hollingbeck, MP, Shadow Local Government Secretary. Kevin, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Thanks very much indeed for joining us. I mean, this was a pretty cynical move, wasn't it, to announce this at the very last minute of the final session of Parliament before Easter recess, I assume, with the hope that nobody would bother picking it up.
Well, please, can I say to anybody, go onto Twitter and just look at Katie Lamb and look at her speech from yesterday, because it's an outstanding speech, but it's horrific. And if anybody thinks we can just sweep this under the carpet, which Labour is doing, then it's completely wrong. Yeah. We need a national inquiry. And what Labour said yesterday was effectively, having said once at one point they'll have 5 local inquiries, which isn't satisfactory by any shape or form. But now those inquiries can be flexible, so the extent of them, the remit of them, the jurisdiction can be set by the local authority themselves. Yeah. Well, as Katie said, the abuse was potentially, their allegations are, from within those local authorities. So how can that be the case, that you are judge and jury over your own potential crimes? And these could be crimes. But listen to what Katie says about the extent of those crimes. They are horrendous. They're unthinkable. And to think this government is willing to simply sweep it under the carpet, which is what they are saying, is quite incredible, and it's totally shocking to me.
Yeah. It's breathtaking in a way, isn't it? I mean, do you, like me, agree that there is a problem between the Labour government, the Labour Party, and the Muslim community, and what they perceive to be their Muslim vote? They don't want to upset them. They don't want to provoke them in any way. They don't want to kind of draw attention to them if there's anything bad to be said. And that's what's driven this decision.
I think they're in denial. And that's because a lot of the councils can be made up with some of the Muslim community, so they don't want to upset them. But it's not just Labour as well. If you look at what Vanessa Wilson, the Liberal Democrat spokesman yesterday, when she talks about this, after Katie spoke, read what she said as well. She criticised us for pointing the finger of the blame at these rape gangs at members of the Muslim community. Despite this, it was quite clear, the evidence shows that these people, this is not all Muslims. I have many friends who are Muslim. This is not all about attacking Muslims. It's about tackling certain elements, certain cultures within that community that think it's okay to carry out these kind of horrendous rape gang situations and offences. But they're speaking, as Katie says, they're saying they want to do it to the white indigenous population. It is those people that have been racist. It's not all that people like Katie and the leader of the opposition, Kemi, and others have done, and Chris Philp, is point to the fact that there's a race-based element to these horrendous crimes, and we must be willing to speak out about it. And we are, and the opposition are not.
Yes. And don't you think as well that some of those elements of the Muslim community that you refer to, people that you know, friends of yours, people who are fine, upstanding members of British society, should they not be saying more about this?
Of course. It is incumbent on every single person in our society to speak out about this, or whatever position you hold in society. And whatever religious or racial background you have, it's incumbent on us all to speak out about it and speak out about prejudice wherever it exists. So yes, of course, it is incumbent on us all, including members of the Muslim community.
Quite right too. Let's talk about Birmingham and the state of that city, because we've been covering it now for about a week and a half. The fourth month, basically, of a bin strike from the workers up there from the Unite Union. I mean, interestingly, Wes Streeting came out yesterday and had a go at them in the same way that not Jess Phillips, that Angela Rayner had a go at them at the weekend, saying, you know, it's time for Unite to do a deal with the council, and more or less told them to stop blocking, you know, bin lorries that were coming out of the depot. You know, they've sort of slightly moved away from their core, you know, backers, haven't they? Because I mean, Unite Union is one of their backers, and you would expect them to back the strike, but they're kind of sitting on the fence on this one.
Well, I actually think Angela Rayner hasn't done enough, nowhere near enough. She hasn't been to the city. She hasn't criticised Unite. She said get in a room and negotiate. And you've got to look at the backstory of this, Mike, and you'll know it, but this all happened because of the Labour Council in Birmingham struck a deal with Unite back in 2017 to pay some workers more. And then, incredibly, the union, Unite themselves and other unions, then take Birmingham City Council to court on the basis of unequal pay, and the Birmingham City Council lost, which cost the taxpayers of Birmingham £1 billion in settlement. That's what it cost them. And now Unite are bringing those workers out on strike because Birmingham City Council are trying to now address the problem that was caused in 2017. But where's Angela Rayner? She's never been to the city. She's never properly criticised Unite for all those things. And could that be because, Mike, the Labour Party has received tens of millions of pounds in donations from Unite since 2010, and indeed Angela Rayner herself has been a beneficiary in terms of contributions towards her election campaign. That's why Angela Rayner is not stepping in and doing what she should be doing. She has done nowhere near enough in terms of resolving this. She must condemn Unite and call these strikes must be called off today. This is causing a public health emergency. This must be addressed straight away.
It's a good story. Let's talk about another good story. This is a bonkers council, front page of the Daily Express today. A decision not to allow a military parade to mark the 80th anniversary of VE Day, right, because it is elitist, according to them. This is a Lib Dem council up in somewhere near Hemel Hempstead. And they're saying that basically they don't think they need to have a commemorative procession or march or just a rally of any kind at all. And they clearly don't want to remember those amazingly proud and brilliant people who fought for this country, and many of whom died for this country.
I mean, it's just unthinkable. I mean, you've got to shake your head in disbelief, haven't you? I mean, you know, where's the pride in the country? Yeah. I mean, as a party, Mike, you'll be willing to criticise us. We're not perfect. We make mistakes, but we are proud of this country. We are proud of the sacrifices people have made. We're proud of what we did in the Second World War in defending Europe. Yeah. And to think people see this now as somehow elitist, I mean, it just beggars belief, to be quite honest with you. I mean, this is, as you say, a Lib Dem council that's doing this, and that shows you what you get if you don't vote Conservative. I must say, we've got local elections coming up in May the 1st. If you don't vote for Conservative councillors, this is the kind of stuff you will get. So please go out and support Conservatives on May the 1st.
Yeah, I mean, it is extraordinary. We'll be giving you all the local council election material and information that you need, obviously, coming up shortly. Let's talk finally about what is going on as well in the world of the British theme park, right? Because the government has announced, and it looks good on paper. I don't know whether it's going to actually happen, but I was reminded this morning by somebody who wrote in saying that there was a theme park promised in Kent back in 2012, which never actually materialised. But according to Keir Starmer, we're going to have a new theme park somewhere in Bedfordshire around about sort of 6 years from now, and it's going to employ thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, and it's going to bring £60 billion into the economy. I mean, if it's true and it works, it's the first sort of decent bit of news that they've given us, isn't it?
Well, listen, you welcome it. A concern I'd have, if it's 6 years away, will we have any money left to spend in it? But you know, we helped Universal Studios acquire that land, secure that land. It's got to be welcomed. It's all part of the Oxford-Cambridge corridor, which again, we want to see prosperity in London and the South East. But I also want to see prosperity around the country. And, you know, Rachel Reeves has moved to panic mode now in terms of growth because she's destroyed growth through talking the economy down, through taxing it to the hilt, through all these red tape that's coming through the Employment Rights Bill. So she's desperate for growth. So what does she do? She announces Heathrow, Gatwick, Luton, Oxford, Cambridge corridor. What about Northern Powerhouse Rail? What about Network North? What about dualling the A1 north of Newcastle? What about investments in Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, the South West? That's what she should be doing. That's how you level up this country. So yes, of course we want investments around the country, but we want them in the areas that are currently being left behind, and that's not the message we're getting from central government right now.
No, quite. Kevin, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Kevin Hollenberg, MP, Shadow Local Government Secretary. Let's get a voice note from Kieran.
With regards to the Bedford Universal Theme Park and Labour being able to pull it off, as a local to this sort of area, I used to work literally 3 minutes down the road from where that theme park is reportedly going to be being put, and it's been in planning for over 10 years. There's always been the area of land has always been said that it's going to be where they build a Universal or a Disney. So no, it's not Labour that have been doing this at all.
No, indeed. As Kevin Hollenberg just said, that they acquired the land for Universal, so it actually could be their claim if it actually does go ahead. Viewer from Sweden here, Anna, says, thanks for the great show. What is going on in Britain? How can you spend millions on a theme park and billions on hotels while everything else is getting more expensive? There's no common sense. Very true. Neil in Derbyshire says on the same theme, I've got an idea for the theme park. Just let everyone in for free. No questions asked. And one from Jennifer, who says, Mike, after an hour of opening, unfortunately, the theme park is now closed due to weather conditions. The wind isn't blowing enough to power the fun park. The windmills aren't generating electricity. Plus, we can't afford the energy costs. Sorry, people. Got my bumper sticker, by the way. Looks great on my car, all the way in Burbage. Thank you very much indeed. Lots more of you to talk to. Coming up, we're going to find out what's going on in Birmingham. We're going to speak to the Technical and Compliance Manager at the British Pest Control Association, a bloke by the name of Neil Gallagher. We'll find out from him what they can do to get rid of the rats. For heaven's sake, it's a nightmare. It's 9:19.
Hi, I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and I've got a message for you. Welcome back to this blockbuster edition of What Just Happened. It really is a good one, I think. It's so funny that people keep calling me Meghan Markle, because it's Meghan Sussex now.
Lynn has said, Samara, I agree with you all the time, but you're just boring.
Hi! I refuse to work for ITV ever again. Oh! What Just Happened? Fridays at 9 on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Lots and lots of you have been in touch this morning, so I'm really grateful to all of you for all the ideas that you've given us for the British theme park. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. Ed's Eco Dodgems. The cars use green power, but on cloudy days you propel them around yourself like the Flintstones, says Paul in Leeds. And one from Robin, he says, how about making visitors get from the car park to the theme park entrance hanging on underneath a shuttle coach? I mean, it's just too good. We'll have to put all these together and send them somewhere. Let's get a voice note from Maddie.
Morning, Mike. This is Maddie from Essex. What can I say? Your show just gets better and better. With regards to the theme park, etc., a lot of the roller coaster rides have a countdown timer before launching, just to build up anticipation, etc. Just think they could have a voiceover of Keir Starmer doing the voiceover. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya.
Yay! Maddie, thank you very much indeed. Absolutely extraordinary, isn't it? One from Dave in South Gloucester on the rape gang story, though. Mike, I think the decision and timing announced by Phillips yesterday is worse than cynical. I think it is a defiant and derisory two-fingered gesture to the real British people, which says, we're in charge, we'll do what we want, when we want, and won't do what we don't want. We'll decide which sections of the community will ensure thrive and succeed, and who is actually oppressed. And it's interesting what William Clouston was saying when he was here, because he basically was of the opinion that the whole Labour project, the whole Labour government, basically only sees things one way. They only see a victim who's from an ethnic minority. They can't see a white girl as a victim of an ethnic minority. They can't see the victims of these ghastly grooming gangs, these rape gangs, as in any way being victims because they're the wrong colour. They're white. And only brown people are supposed to be victims. That's the way they see the world, and that's what he said, which I think is really, really tragic and bad for this country at the end of the day. Now, we're going to talk about rats and Birmingham and rubbish. Neil Gallows is here, Technical and Compliance Manager at the British Pest Control Association. Neil, a very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
There was a man dressed as a rat yesterday in Birmingham. I'm just going to show you a little clip of it because I think only in this country could something like this actually happen. Not only is he dressed like a rat, walking around and sort of, making statements to the press and all the rest of it, but he actually gets to ask a question to the council chamber, and then he even gets an answer. Have a look.
I'm looking forward to going around, eating rubbish wherever I can see. I'm a Selly Oak rat, so in Selly Oak all the students litter all their rubbish and it doesn't get collected, and I'm very, very happy to be going around, eating their food, having lots and lots of babies with my wife, and really increasing the rat population in Birmingham. By what date does the council think it will have reduced the backlog, reduced the rat population, and returned our streets to an acceptable state?
Councillor Mohammed, I didn't to reply.
So, the great British eccentrics, I suppose you might say, Niall. But it is a big problem up there, isn't it? I don't know if you're involved technically with it at the moment, are you?
So some of our members have been involved with the Birmingham as we represent people nationally.
Right.
I myself haven't been up to Birmingham, but the councils are doing what councils are doing at the moment to try and reduce the rat populations and the bin waste all at the same time.
And what are they actually doing at this point? Because the strike is now in its 4th month, I'm told.
Yeah, so the council has put in sort of emergency collections and stuff as well, so where they are trying to reduce it. But for us, we sort of tend to stay more on the public health aspect, which is highlighting the importance of these bin collections, of the sort of the control of the rodent populations as well.
Right. I mean, once it gets this bad, because I'm told that they've got rats the size of cats, and I'm sure that that's probably a slight media exaggeration, but not much. Once you've got this sort of infestation of rats to such a degree, is it ever possible to get rid of them?
Yeah, so with a fully holistic approach, you can reduce the rat populations, and there are very successful areas where they have completely reduced rodent populations, but it is a community approach and it does take time, and unfortunately these services aren't free, so there is a cost element as well for that we have to consider as well.
Yeah. And so, I mean, in terms of what you would do as an organisation or what you would do as an individual, I mean, what can be done right now? Because obviously, ideally, all the rubbish gets picked up and it gets picked up in the next couple of days, but that's not really what's happening. So what can you do in the meantime?
I think in the meantime, while the rubbish can't get picked up, because like you highlighted, that would be our first port of call. The best way to reduce rats is to reduce the attraction of food. So by removing the rubbish, we would ultimately break part of that cycle already. But where we don't have that availability for the waste to be collected, it would be where possible, try and get them, try and get your waste removed. Apart from that, it'd be, keeping the outside of your home tidy. It'd be trying to keep the building proof to make sure you're not having gaps around pipework, gaps around your drains that may allow ingress into your properties. And that community approach is quite important, because although it might be on your neighbour's land, eventually that population could increase and move onto your land. So it really is a community issue.
Yeah, because I had a case when I lived in New York many years ago, and there was a house at the end of my street which was basically derelict and had been derelict for quite a long time, and then suddenly somebody came along to demolish it, and when they demolished it, all these rats suddenly came out of it and occupied, basically I had a garden flat and occupied my garden. It was pretty awful. I just had a baby who we used to put outside and sit there, you know, in the sunshine and sometimes in a paddling pool, and all you could hear at sort of dusk was this noise. It was awful. And in the end, you know, when I moved, I ended up selling the place, moved out of it. Well, I actually couldn't sell it, moved out of it, came back to Britain. But, I mean, you couldn't get rid of the rats. They were just there.
Yeah, so void properties, especially when we have developments, do cause their own unique issue as well.
Yeah.
But I think, again, it is that community approach. These are public health pests. This is a public issue, not a personal issue.
Yeah.
And I think this is what we really need to highlight, is that actually, you know, having that effect, you know, helping out your neighbour, you know, working together is the best long-term strategy, not only controlling the population at the moment, but sustaining those numbers at a lower level over a longer period of time. Because, you know, we can reduce the population today, but if the population then goes up 10% tomorrow, we haven't actually reduced the population. And for us, you know, it's managing these populations is the key part of it.
Yeah, because, I mean, we're told in London, and I think I was told the same in New York, that you're never more than about 7 feet away from a rat. So, I mean, how many rats are there in this country?
It's very difficult for us to say how many rats there are.
Millions, though, right?
There's probably going to be a very large amount of rats. Typically, you know, especially within the sewer networks as well, we aren't doing population studies within sewers.
Yeah.
So again, we only have reports which can vary area to area. Social media, again, is another rise where, you know, although we have a lot of reports, we don't know whether, you know, these are accurate in an actual population increase as well.
So the ones that are currently in Birmingham, in Selly say particularly, where have they come from? Have they come from the sewer network?
So it'd be really difficult for us to say where they've come from, but rats don't just appear overnight. There would have been a sustained population there in the local area. Unfortunately, with the amount of food available to them, it's just given them a larger rise to, unfortunately, have that food source available to them.
And are you allowed to poison them? Is that what you would do to eradicate them?
Yeah, so we have, you know, a variety of different methods that we can use. So it would be either using, you know, those poisons or rodenticides. We'd also be using traps and stuff as well. But again, also those environmental changes as well is really important that we have to consider, because they're the cheaper and more sustainable options long term.
Right. Good to talk to you. Niall Gallagher, thank you very much indeed, Technical Compliance Manager at the British Pest Control Association. I think we can garner from that there's at least several million rats in Britain. And many of them have gone to Birmingham because that's where the rubbish is, and they're never going to leave. So if you're in Birmingham and you've seen them, and you've seen the ones that are as big as cats, we need to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. We've got a call coming in from Solihull. Gordon is on the line. Gordon, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Nice to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, sir. What can you tell me?
Well, I was just moved to pick up the phone yesterday because I was born and grew up in Selly Oak.
Right.
And there I was looking at a street that was a part of my childhood when I used to play.
Oh, really? You recognise the street?
Recognise the street, yeah.
Wow.
And it just took me back to the days when Selly Oak was just a nice working-class community. Where we were surrounded by lots of lovely factory jobs, the Austin Motor Company, Cadbury's, Lucas's, all of those sort of things where, you know, families had jobs, and it was a great settled community, and it just ain't like that anymore. It's a great shame to see the decline.
It really is awful, isn't it? Because a lot of people say to me that, you know, part of the reason for the rubbish to have been sort of, I mean, I know that people, you know, obviously expect rubbish to be collected, but many parts of Birmingham are not as bad as Selly Oak because people are actually taking it to the tip.
Yeah, well, absolutely right. But I think the real little trigger that made me pick up the phone was to see that the street, which was full of families, is now full of HMOs.
Yeah.
So the demographic of Selly Oak is absolutely and completely changed from what it used to be. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I guess there's no going back on it either. Listen, Gordon, good to hear from you. Thank you very much indeed, Gordon in Solihull there. It is a shame. But, of course, this is what's happening in Britain, all over Britain, in parts of Britain that you used to think of as, you know, very, very nice places to grow up, great places to bring up your kids, fantastic sort of family values, fantastic, communities where people knew each other, where people helped each other, where people looked out for each other, now ruined, and you have to say it, by immigration, by people who have come to this country and have moved into areas and completely ruined them. There's no two ways about it. There's no point pretending and dancing around the subject going, well, there are some very good things about diversity. Well, yeah, there are, I'm sure, some very good things about it, but there's some very bloody bad things about it as well. It's 9:33.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:34. I'm Mike Graham. Morning, Mike. My car sticker is now in pride of place on the bumper, says Maggie. Thank you. I'll be driving around Marsden and regular trips across the hill into Ashton with it on display. Not seen Angela yet, though. Great show this morning, Maggie. Thank you very much indeed. Alan from Peterborough says, Mike, if the Netflix series Adolescence would have starred an Asian boy as the main character, someone would never have mentioned it, let alone hold an international summit. I'm so fed up with the hypocrisy of this government. And Trevor from St Albans, on the subject of the great British theme park, says this: don't bother queuing for Keir Starmer's roller coaster ride. He's still fracturing the foundations. Of course he is. Some brilliant stuff has come in today, by the way. You've got about another 20 minutes to get it to us. The home of common sense, the place where we get the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, which is why, of course, we want to now talk to Martin Gower, former NHS chair, because yesterday we got a piece of startling news, I thought, from Wes Streeting, from the Health Secretary of State for Health and Social Care. He basically said that there are now an extra 1,500 GPs on the books brought in on a huge recruitment booster, so there's no more 8 a.m. scramble for a GP appointment. Now, I've been asking how you have found that, and not many of you have said very much about it so far, so I'm interested in what you've got to say. If you've suddenly found that it's easier now to get a GP's appointment, please do let us know. Martin, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike, and thank you for having me on.
Not at all.
This morning.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first question I've got really is, where have these 1,500 GPs come from, if indeed they exist, and what were they doing?
Well, there's two issues with GPs. I mean, one is that too many of them, frankly, are part-time.
Yeah.
So maybe they've negotiated getting some of them to work a few more hours, right, which would effectively be like introducing more GPs. I mean, my own GP practice has 12 GPs, only 3 of whom work full-time.
Yeah.
So that's one possibility. The other possibility is that we've spirited some away from other countries and brought them in. There's obviously been an ongoing campaign to import both doctors and nurses from countries like India, the Philippines, Pakistan and others.
Yeah.
But there's a mystery how suddenly we've managed to hire 1,500 GPs.
Well, it's quite a big number, isn't it? I mean, if they'd said, oh, we've managed to hire 100 or something, I'd go, well, all right, fair enough. But 1,500, it seems a large amount of people who could not possibly have just all been working in the system. And I know that, for example, I don't know whether you've heard me talking about it, but I've had a sort of an ongoing rant at myself, I suppose, over the past month or so, because I don't believe, for example, that they're reducing waiting lists. They are, I know, giving more people, you know, more kind of appointments at weekends than they used to do, and they're getting more diagnostic work done and that kind of thing. But the actual waiting list for proper procedures are not going down, because my fervent belief, and this is backed up by a lot of people getting in touch with me, is that people are given an appointment, and then shortly before they're about to have the appointment, it gets cancelled and they sort of get moved off onto another list.
I think that's possibly true. And of course, a few days ago, we had this information that about £500 million has been lost in terms of giving procedures to visitors, health tourists, as they're sometimes called. And that, of course, has the impact of increasing waiting lists. It moves other people down the list.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things about the data floating around in the NHS that, frankly, unless you spend hours and hours delving into precisely how they've arrived at it, manipulated it, NHS data is, I always describe it as like a piano. You can play any tune you like on it. And I think Mr. Streeting and his predecessors, in all fairness, have been fairly deft at achieving that.
Yes. And that's my suspicion with this as well, that 1,500 probably is not quite the number. You know, great if they've managed to get more GPs in, and everyone would applaud them for that, but I haven't seen any great number of people listening to this show or watching this show who have said to me, oh yeah, you know, actually my GP's a lot better. Some people say their GPs actually work pretty well. There's always been that, and some don't. But the idea that suddenly they're now better than they were, I think, is what's in doubt for me anyway. And maybe, as you say, they're counting numbers of heads as opposed to counting people who only used to work 3 days a week who now work 5.
Mike, the other issue is that a lot of people these days are referred to a practice nurse or some other member of the practice who isn't actually medically qualified.
Right.
And that, of course, can free up considerable amounts of GP time. I don't object to that. Frankly, if you talk to GPs, and up until 2000, when I left the NHS, I talked to a lot of GPs, and the story was always quite similar. That about 4 out of 10 of the people in the waiting room needn't have seen a GP. Right. There were these repeated appointments, people who came back and kept on making more appointments, who really sort of clogged up the system to some degree. And of course, there was also the people who made an appointment and didn't show up.
Right.
So you hear that GPs are very stressed out and horrendously pressured, and haven't got enough capacity. And I then always hear there's a whole load of people trying to make appointments to GPs and actually need to see one.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I certainly know plenty of people, and we've heard from them every single day that we've talked on this show, that they do have to get the 8 a.m. scramble, and many of them say, if I can't get through until about 8:05, I get through and only to be told, well, all the appointments have now gone, so you might have to try back tomorrow.
I mean, Mike, the one piece of reform that Mr. Streeting ought to be doing is removing the system that says GPs are paid on capitation. In other words, they're paid by how many people are registered with the practice, with a little bit of a formula based on their demographics, age and all that sort of stuff. But actually, that's not a great way to do it, because it's really an incentive for the GPs not to see people, because they get paid anyway. Whereas in other countries, and I've studied that in quite some depth, most GPs are paid not on capitation, but on activity.
Well, right. And that seems to make perfect sense, doesn't it? That's what happens in France, isn't it?
Absolutely happens exactly as in France.
Yeah, and why on earth they couldn't change it to something like that? Because that's relatively easy to do, isn't it?
Or try to negotiate that with the BMA.
Yeah. Well, I think you put your finger on it, because not enough people, I think, understand how much influence the BMA has. For example, the BMA is responsible for not training enough doctors, because they didn't want to allow too many doctors into the sort of, secret profession, if you like. They don't like to have too many people wandering about, because they want to charge a premium for what it is that they do. And they're quite a militant union, really.
They very much so. I mean, I've dealt with them firsthand on one or two issues, and it reminded me of my previous life in the newspaper industry, dealing with the print union. Which was a fascinating.
Yeah, it's a very interesting comparison. That, yeah, absolutely right. So we remain to be, you know, impressed with the way that the NHS has improved, but so far, I think I'm going to retain my scepticism about it.
Mike, until social care is incorporated with the NHS into a single service in your local community, it will never really improve that much.
Right.
I had the direct experience in the last trust I chaired of an integrated system where the local authority actually subcontracted all the decision making on adult social care to us. So if somebody could have the access to a nurse, to a physiotherapist, a mental health nurse, or indeed to a social worker who could look to where they could be best placed and where they could be best supported. Now that needs to be integrated. This is all pillar to post stuff. And until that's done properly, I mean, he is called the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care.
Yeah.
What he said is it's going to take 2 years to get rid of NHS England, which I think and they're saying, well, they're not quite sure how it's going to shape up. Well, they should have been sure before they decided to scrap it, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely right. Martin, good to talk to you. Martin Gower there, former NHS chair, giving us the benefit of his opinion. Similar to mine, which is that these 1,500 doctors might not quite be as sold. There may not be 1,500 extra doctors, as I suspected yesterday. 0344 499 1000. Angela from Wilmslow says, at what point do we say enough is enough and get the army brought in to sort out the rubbish situation in Birmingham? I'm sure Maggie Thatcher would, but she'd have stood up to the unions anyway. Very true. And Ray says this, I think we had this yesterday, with the ongoing bin strike, Birmingham should be renamed Birmingham. Very good. David is in Bedford, wants to talk about the theme park, the British theme park in Bedfordshire. David, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
What can I do for you, sir?
Yeah, it's just I find it rather amusing that the Labour government claiming that this is all, you know, they've been involved in it. When in fact, it was first proposed in 2023.
Right.
It's gone through extensive sort of discussion locally, and as far as I know, planning hasn't been given yet any.
Right. Well, certainly Kevin Hollinrake, the Tory shadow minister, came on earlier and said that the land was actually acquired by them and sort of made dedicated to Universal some years ago.
Yes, Comcast originally bought the land in, I think, July 2023.
Okay.
They announced the plans for it in December of that year.
Okay. So it's been knocking around for a while.
Yeah, and there's a lot of infrastructure problems with it. I think it was planned to be opened in about 28.
Right.
But it's been put back because they've got to build a railway station, and the roads around there are totally inadequate for the amount of visitors that they're planning.
And is it something that the local community is hoping will provide a lot of jobs then, or not?
Yeah, I think so. There's an objective to it like that. But as I say, it's like anything, you know, the infrastructure is not there. There's been an awful lot of building around that part of Bedford. And in fact, as far as I can make out, if you get rid of an existing country park there, the area is what used to be brickworks, London brickworks. So it was a bit of an eyesore. But as I say, it's just like everything else. That turning off the junction of the M1, for example, at the Bedford Junction there is a nightmare.
Yeah.
So we've already got Centre Parks have already built a thing on that roundabout. So the traffic has increased from there. So again, it's just, you know, logistics as always.
Well, it's just more common sense that's not really been fed into the system, isn't it? Your line's not great, so I'm going to let you go. David, thank you very much indeed. One here from Alistair. Mike, love your show. A theme park is a good idea, but I'd be happier if the government would say we are stopping net zero rubbish and drill, baby, drill, bring back steel manufacturing, etc., and create jobs that way. Who's going to be able to afford to go to a theme park if they haven't got a job? Says Alistair in East London. Well, quite right too. Let's get a voice note from JB.
Hi, Mike. Great show this morning. Just thinking about these theme parks, usually outside they have maybe a theatre with a circus show in or something similar. And I think we've got a fantastic bunch of clowns that actually could probably work there and probably do a better job than they're doing of running the country.
Yeah, absolutely right. JB, thank you very much indeed. Acres of countryside going under concrete as well as the old brickyard. Local people will have their lives disrupted. What a nightmare, says a local from Bedford. Yeah, well, exactly right, because in the end, if you haven't got the infrastructure, you haven't got the roads, you haven't got the capability of handling it, as Steve says, the theme park might as well be run by Universal Credit, not Universal Studios. Very good. It's at 9:47. More coming up after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. 10 minutes to 10. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here very shortly to tell us what's coming up on her show all the way through until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then, of course, you've got Jeremy Kyle doing Drive from 4. I might make a little appearance on that. We may see. Earlier on the show, Conservative MP Kevin Hollinrake referenced the Lib Dems in a local council which is due to take place in elections, of course, on May the 2nd. Here's what some of the other parties are saying. First up, Ed Davey.
The key thing is we've got to do a lot more, haven't we? Labour's been very disappointing, really disappointing. Yeah. We needed change after the awful Conservatives, and I think people have felt blindly. Getting rid of winter fuel, family farmers tax, now the cuts to disability benefits. It really is not what people expected. And, you know, on foreign affairs, they're not standing up to Trump. And, you know, we have to, for our trade, our economy, people's livelihoods in Oxfordshire across the whole country depend on trade.
Now let's hear from Angela Rayner from the Labour Party.
On the 1st of May, you have the opportunity to make sure that Conservative councils who have let public services crumble and our streets filled with potholes are held to account. By electing Labour councillors and Labour mayors, we can work together to make sure that our plan for change is delivered right across the country with local people at its heart. Bring change to your area. Bring change to Britain. Vote Labour on Thursday, the 1st of May.
And now let's hear from Nigel Farage from Reform.
This year, we will fight every single council seat all over England. We will fight The 6 mayoral contests, these councils have been asleep at the wheel. They've broken their counties, and reform is going to come in, and we are going to fix it. We have the conviction, the love of country, the courage to stand up and say, we are proud of our country. We are proud of its history. We will stand up and defend that to anybody. We are fighting that election on May the 1st. These are our candidates. These are our people, all of you. We are going to make history, and each one of you is a part of it.
And that's the local elections taking place on May the 1st, of course. We've been talking an awful lot about theme parks. We're going to play a little clip from the Department of Media, Culture and Sport put out their idea of what the theme park should be. Maybe they've listened to this show and they'll put some things in it, like one from Michelin Man, who says, how about another option for the theme park, the rat ride? See how many bin bags you can stack and climb before coming face to face with one. Very good. Let's hear from Rick. He's in Portsmouth, wants to talk about the NHS. Rick, very good morning to you.
Hello, fella, how's it going?
Yeah, not bad, sir. What can I do for you?
Oh, your show this morning, absolutely quality. Sorry,
That's been funny, right?
Honestly, I've just been laughing and laughing. It's been so funny. But I tried to call my doctor this morning, and I was calling number 42.
All right.
So that's
Very
not
good.
really going too well.
So, so they obviously haven't got one of the 1,500 new recruits then?
No, I don't think they have done in my place. Also, I've been trying to call you for a while, but not being put through. I've got an appointment to go and get an injection in my neck because I've got a really bad twitch.
Okay.
It's 13 months away.
13?
13
Crikey.
months away.
That's a year and a bit, right?
Yes.
Ridiculous. You're going to be twitching a lot between now and then.
I'm currently twitching as I'm talking to you.
Well, listen, good luck with it, Rick.
But
It must be awful, yeah. But listen, thank you so much for letting us know. Rick in Portsmouth there saying one of the 1,500 doctors hasn't made it down to Portsmouth because, of course, he's still waiting for his appointment. Imagine, you're number 42. Your call is important to us, but we're never going to get to it. And also, if you want your Twitch fixed, it's going to be 13 months, I'm afraid. Unbelievable, isn't it? Matt in Royston, Hertfordshire, says, this sums up the Labour Party to me. The one idea they have to improve growth for the economy is to basically have a bloody big fun fair. It's the type of idea primary school children would pitch, given 10 minutes to come up with something. Well, it turns out, Matt in Royston, that it's not even their idea. But they're now trying to claim it's their idea, even though it was actually the Tories who had the original plan to get the permission and to get the land sorted out for Universal Studios. Let's have a look though, because the Department for Culture, Media and Sport have apparently put out this as a new promo for the fun fair for the new British theme park.
From Universal and the government, the UK's biggest visitor attraction, one of the largest in Europe, starring DCMS, Bedford, and you.
This multi-billion-pound investment is a huge vote of confidence in Britain. It will attract visitors from all over the world, create thousands of jobs, and add up to £50 billion to the economy, and shows the power and potential of our world-leading creators and makers. We're taking the brakes off one of our fastest-growing sectors and making it a thrill to invest in, visit, and do business in Britain.
Sorry. One here says, Mike, a show of real emotional extremes today, but here's an idea for the theme park. It's the HS2 ride. It travels at high speed for 10 feet, where everyone gets off and into the replacement bus ride. Tickets are £50 if bought 5 months in advance, or £1,000 on the day. Best regards, Tony from near John O'Groats. Better weather today. We're up to 6 degrees. Yesterday it was -2. First thing. John O'Groats. My goodness me. And then one from Kelly in Wakefield. At this rate, the only people that will be able to afford a trip to that theme park will be all the illegal migrants as well. They get everything for free, so they should have plenty of spare money left from their delivery jobs. Like the rest of us can't even afford the basics, let alone go to a theme park. Yeah, well, don't worry. They'll go there. They won't need money. They'll be able to go there absolutely, utterly for free. Tremendous. Let's get a word from Dave, who's in London. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Very well, sir. What can I do for you?
Yeah, theme parks, eh? That's it. Problem solved.
Yeah.
Get back.
What is the phrase? Give them bread and circuses.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And let them rot in the rest of the place.
Yeah, just giving you a bit of a thought on your car conundrum.
Yes.
So if you make the car in the UK for 40 grand, and then it's sold to the consumer, we obviously add VAT, so you'll pay 48 grand for it. Same car to America, send it over there for 40 grand. You've got to ship it, maybe 5% costs. They don't necessarily add sales tax or VAT, so you'll only pay 42 grand for it in the States.
Yeah.
So it's the VAT. Basically, when you buy a car in the UK, they might as well put a sticker on it to say, thank you from the NHS.
Yes.
Because
of all the tax.
These are all the taxes you're paying, so no matter what. If you take fuel, it's the other way around.
Yeah, right. Well, fuel's one of the few things at the moment that's actually not that bad, not that expensive. But then oil prices are down as well. But the problem is the car tax is one thing. But all I'm saying is I know from when I was living there, thanks Dave, that it's basically it used to be $1 per pound, which in those days was nearly half price. So you'd for a car that costs about 35-40 grand here, you could get it for 20 to 23 in America. But there we are. Anyway, Julie Hartley-Brewer's here. Very good morning.
Very good morning.
How are you? We've been having a lot of fun with the theme park today. Theme park rides, you know.
Do you know what? I mean, I'm not the biggest.
Dingy rapids.
I'm not
you know,
I do like a rapid. I do like a rapid. I'm not so good with some of the roller coaster ones. I've got an old neck injury. It doesn't work for me. However, isn't part of going to a theme park and it's lovely and sunny and nice?
Yeah.
I'm a bit worried. One of the reasons why Euro Disney was always so dire was because it's basically
the weather's not very good.
It rains more in Paris than it does in London. Little known fact, but genuinely a fact.
Right.
And I'm just thinking, it's not quite the same when you're not in Florida or California, is it?
I think that's probably right. Yeah, I'm not big on theme parks. I mean, I've taken my kids to loads of them, but I never go on anything. I just sit in the cafe.
Are you the coat holder?
I was just standing the coat. Yeah, I just stand.
I'm not big on queuing.
No,
you have to go out. You have to go out of school holidays to make it work.
Well,
but
this
listen,
is what
it's investment. It's going to be local jobs.